anticipated had finally arrived. He recounted the crimes of the Uji kingdom to Cheng Chimo. Cheng listened intently, his expression darkening. The plight of the Uji people was truly miserable. It was essential to eradicate the scourge for the sake of the citizens. Tell me the location, Cheng Chimo insisted. The old man complied, revealing the details to Cheng Chimo. Cheng instructed his men to escort the old man away, then turned to Wang Ju. Send someone to verify the information. If it proves true, send in scouts for a coordinated attack. Cheng ordered. Wang Ju nodded and departed with his men. Cheng rubbed his eyes, feeling dizzy from studying the map. Why not simply use hot air balloons for an aerial drop? Ernyo suggested. Cheng Chimo patiently explained. It was normal for Ernyo not to understand. Aerial assault requires certain prerequisites. The drop zone must be secure. If the enemy knows the landing site, it is no longer an aerial drop, but a delivery. Typically, aerial assaults occur behind enemy lines. In the current siege, there were no rear positions. All sides were fortified walls. They could only send Wang Ju to scout. If conditions for a drop were met, Cheng Chimo would be eager to proceed with that method. Ernyo, enlightened, began to grasp the concept. Cheng Chimo had experienced aerial operations. They were indeed effective, striking the enemy's core and flanking them, with a proven track record. However, the costs were significant. To achieve strategic objectives, such sacrifices were within an acceptable range. Cheng Chimo stepped out of the tent, hands clasped behind his back, gazing at the soldiers atop the city walls. The guards were clad in armor. Which cavalry unit is this? It is said that the 8 cavalries are formidable. They boast a great deal, but I wonder about their actual combat prowess. In truth, it leaves much to be desired. The Qing dynasty's significant battles were primarily fought by Han soldiers. The 8 cavalries merely defend the Zijing city. How pitiful it is to be overcome by a mere 1,000 invaders. Where are the 8 cavalries? They are but a facade. Ernyo, fire a few cannon shots to test them, Cheng Chimo commanded. Ernyo ordered the soldiers to fire. After a few shots, there was a profound silence on the city walls. Not a single person dared to look up. Cheng Chimo smirked, his face betraying disdain. They do not deserve such a name. No wonder the Tang dynasty did not regard them highly. Frankly, they are inferior to Goryeo. After a long while, a soldier finally peeked out, shouting profanities from the battlements, though Cheng Chimo could not comprehend a word. Ernyo also found it unintelligible, but sensed hostility in their words. He commanded the soldiers to fire again. The silence returned. I spit on you. You're even more bothersome than flies. Just wait until I break in. I will deal with you then, Ernyo cursed, pacing angrily before the cannon. Cheng Chimo remained speechless. 3 days later, Lang Ju returned to the camp to report to Cheng Chimo. There is a tunnel beneath the city, left by the craftsmen. They always leave a way out, fearing that their rulers will use them as sacrifices for the city. Upon concluding his report, Cheng Chimo instructed, reward the old man. And you and Ernyo must devise a plan to seize the city. Lang Ju and Ernyo complied. Cheng Chimo continued to focus on the map. The two, along with Lang Ju, executed their tasks with remarkable efficiency, and by nightfall, the naval marines entered the city. The sounds of slaughter echoed within. Cheng Chimo rode to the city gate, which opened for him as he entered. Ernyo approached his horse. Shall we slaughter? He inquired. Cheng Chimo did not respond. And Han Tu led the horse toward the government office. Ernyo, confused, glanced at Lang Ju. Lang Ju tilted his head, nonplussed. Ernyo immediately forced a smile, saying, please lend a hand. My mind is not functioning properly. Lang Ju regarded him with disdain, thinking that his mind was merely an excuse to evade responsibility. I do not know. Our task is not to engage in battle, but when we strike, we must leave no survivors, Lang Ju stated. As the second of the notorious 9 leaders, he was decisive in his actions, and their identities could not be disclosed. The rule was clear, leave no witnesses. Ernyo gritted his teeth. Kill the soldiers, spare the civilians, he commanded. This was the limit of his resolve. He could not match Cheng Chimo's ruthlessness. With orders given, Ernyo and Lang Ju hastened to catch up with Cheng Chimo, ensuring their leader faced no unforeseen dangers. Upon reaching the government office, they found the county magistrate prepared to surrender, kneeling before Cheng Chimo. Han Tu's expression darkened as he stepped forward and struck the magistrate 10 resounding slaps. How dare you curse the Lord? Han Tu bellowed. Cheng Chimo remained silent, realizing that this flaw was deeply ingrained. I, Yeha Nara Wang, willingly submit, the magistrate hastily proclaimed, standing up, unable to rub his swollen face. Who was the commander during the attack on the border city? Cheng Chimo inquired, his tone neutral, indifferent to the name. The magistrate's heart sank, and his gaze darted away. Han Tu lashed the magistrate's face with his whip, declaring, the Lord is questioning you. How dare you hesitate? This man cannot be spared, Han Tu asserted, believing that hesitation signified deceit, that he was concocting a story in his mind. Those who dare to lie to the Lord deserve death. The magistrate rolled on the ground, clutching his face. Han Tu struck him again, the magistrate's cries echoing in the air. Ernyo and Lang Ju exchanged glances, taken aback by Han Tu's brutality. Of course, Han Tu was merciless. His experiences had made him keenly aware of the harsh realities of life. His wife had been taken from him, and years later, he found her. But their children did not recognize him as their father. To stand firm, one must be resolute. To protect what one values, one must be ruthless. He trained with special forces, sought wisdom from Lao Mo, and learn martial arts alongside Long Zhan. His background as a commoner made him cherish the opportunity that Cheng Chumo had provided him more than anyone else. Suddenly, the magistrate sprang up, hands covering his face, revealing a dagger aimed straight at Cheng Chumo. The earlier cowardice had been an act. He intended to capture the king by seizing the thief first. His speed was impressive. Cheng Chumo observed him calmly, the distance closing in an instant. Crack! Han Tu's whip struck the magistrate's wrist, causing the dagger to fall. But that was not the end. With a swift motion, Han Tu delivered a knee strike. The magistrate's eyes widened in shock as Han Tu's fingers swiftly jabbed at his eyes. The magistrate had no time to scream. Han Tu's fingers extended, striking down at the magistrate's throat with force. Blood gushed from the magistrate's mouth as he collapsed. Han Tu, not yet satisfied, stepped on the magistrate's chest over his heart. The magistrate convulsed a few times before falling silent. This series of actions flowed seamlessly. Cheng Chumo felt a sense of satisfaction. This was indeed his reliable horseman. Well done, he remarked, dismounting to enter the government office. Everyone hurried to follow. Inside, chaos reigned as servants and maids scurried about like headless flies, clutching small bundles. The main door had been sealed. There was nowhere left to flee. Make them stand still, Han Tu commanded. Ernyo promptly complied. No one dared to underestimate Han Tu's day. It could be said that Cheng Chumo could express a thought, and Han Tu would decipher half of it. This was what a true horseman should be. Soon, the servants and maids stood in neat rows, each clutching their bundles. Heads bowed, too afraid to meet the gaze of Cheng Chumo, who sat atop his majestic steed. They had intended to flee upon hearing of Cheng Chumo's arrival at the city, but the magistrate had not allowed it, leaving them with no escape now. Who are the magistrate's family members? Han Tu asked. Silence ensued. Han Tu's gaze turned icy as he looked at Cheng Chumo, who displayed no expression. Han Tu understood instantly. One must eradicate the roots of the grass, he asserted. 3 to be executed, he decreed. The naval marines moved without hesitation. A third of the group was slain. Who are the magistrate's family members? Han Tu inquired again. Still no one spoke. 2 to be executed, he ordered. The naval marines continued their ruthless assault. Only a few dozen remained. Who are the magistrate's family members? Han Tu pressed once more, but before the answer could be given, he declared, slaughter. Questions no longer hold significance. Since they cannot be identified, they must all perish. The naval marines complied. I know, someone shouted, but it was too late. The entire government office was drenched in blood. Clean out a room. The Lord needs to rest, Han Tu instructed. After ensuring everything was tidy, Cheng Chumo dismounted and entered the dimly lit chamber, taking his seat. The Marine Corps commenced a ruthless siege, annihilating all affluent families and slaying the defenders of the city. The massacre persisted from dusk until noon the following day, with gunfire echoing incessantly. Eventually, silence descended. Ernyo and others arrived to report, witnessing Han Tu seated at the entrance. Is Lord Han awake? Ernyo inquired. Han Tu nodded and rose to gently knock on the door. The door opened. To the next destination, Cheng Chu Mo declared. Han Tu hastily went to retrieve the horses. The Marine Corps swiftly withdrew from the city. In the aftermath of 3 consecutive bloodbaths, the entire nation of Wuji fell into a hushed stillness. Upon reaching the 4th city, the Marine Corps stood at its gates. Yet no defenders were visible atop the walls. The gates stood wide open. An elderly man, cradling a seal in both hands, bowed deeply at the entrance. We submit, he declared. Han Tu stepped forward to accept the seal and returned to hand it to Cheng Chu Mo, who glanced at it indifferently and did not take it. Who initiated the attack on the border city? Cheng Chu Mo asked. The elder smiled bitterly, certain that speaking the truth would lead to his demise. Aizen Jorobichi. He answered. Where is he? Cheng Chu Mo pressed. In the royal city, the elder replied. No further instructions were needed from Cheng Chu Mo. Han Tu led the horses straight to the royal city. The elder wiped the sweat from his brow, silently deeming the king foolish for provoking Cheng Chu Mo. What was done. However, one must ensure there are no future repercussions. How to respond now? With every battle leading to slaughter. Which city would dare to defend itself? Without defense, the enemy would not even enter. To defend would mean certain death, and no one is foolish. Even if Cheng Chu Mo were to retreat now, the entire Wuji nation would fragment, as the surrendered city lords, fearing royal retribution, would undoubtedly sever ties with Wuji and seek refuge with the Tang dynasty. Watching the distant retreating troops, the elder mused, this is a massacre that strikes at the heart. I must consider the citizens of the city. I will draft a letter of allegiance. From now on, I am a subject of the Tang. The elder set a precedent, inspiring other city lords to follow suit. As Cheng Chu Mo's forces approached, they surrendered without hesitation. Some even offered military provisions, seeking to ingratiate themselves with him. Cheng Chu Mo's progress was unimpeded until he finally reached the royal city. The sight of only 10,000 troops facing Cheng Chu Mo left the people of Wuji aghast. How could such a small force traverse so freely to the royal city? Were the defenders of other cities merely decorations? Nyo commanded the cannons to fire. Cheng Chu Mo had no desire for idle chatter. They were unworthy. A cannon unleashed a relentless barrage upon the royal city, indifferent to whether it could breach the walls. Destruction was the goal. Hot air balloons ascended, initiating aerial bombardments, dropping explosives over the royal city. Over 3 days, they unleashed thousands of explosives. turning the royal city into a blazing inferno. Arrows, like long spears, whistled in retaliation, remnants of the initial siege upon the border city, irreplaceable and unmatched. The volley failed to strike the balloons, resulting in even more ferocious bombardments. After the chaos, the buildings lay in ruins, and the royal city fell silent. Cheng Chu Mo ordered a final sweep, and the Marine Corps entered the city. Wuji soldiers emerged from the debris, only to be met with gunfire. In the devastated royal palace, the king's visage turned ashen, and the ministers were battered and bruised, utterly powerless to resist. I am filled with rage. Why did I not eliminate Cheng Chu Mo when I had the chance? The king bellowed, remembering how he had once commanded the siege of the border city. Report. Cheng Chu Mo has breached the outer city. Came the cry. The king forced a bitter smile, realizing they could not even organize a counterattack. He glanced at the ministers, the representatives of various clans. Wuji had no aristocracy, each clan acting independently, reminiscent of the Tang's noble families, but vastly inferior in strength. Report. The outer city has fallen. And Cheng Chu Mo is at the palace gates. Another soldier burst in. Boom. An explosive detonated outside the grand hall, startling everyone. The assault on the palace had commenced. After the explosion, no more soldiers arrived to report. Cheng Chu Mo rode into the grand hall, locking eyes with the king, whose gaze was seething with fury. Cheng Chu Mo addressed the king. Brothers, I have avenged you today. Suddenly, Han Tu lunged forward, plunging a dagger into the king's neck. He withdrew the blade, blood gushing forth. The king clutched his wound, glaring at Han Tu as he collapsed. Han Tu returned to lead the horses away. Slaughter, he commanded, departing the scene. Outside the city, he prepared the memorial. Cheng Chu Mo dismounted and lit incense. Rest in peace, my brothers. A cool breeze swept through, carrying the smoke skyward. Cheng Chu Mo closed his eyes, seemingly transported back to the bygone border city, where there were slaves and vanguard troops. Wuji was no more, as consistently abysmal as ever. Following the massacre of the royal city, lords from various regions rushed to surrender. The sole condition for surrender was the presentation of the heads of the prominent clans. There was no need to kill them all, only the heads were required. In a desperate bid for survival, the lords began their own bloodbaths. Some lords, controlling entire cities, heeded Cheng Chu Mo's demand for heads without specifying which clan. Better to kill a friend than a foe. Once one clan engaged in this practice, others followed suit. Showing no mercy, the bloodshed escalated, leading to deep-seated enmities between the clans. Would they still wish to unite? To spare their rivals would be akin to forgetting their roots. The Yehanala clans suffered the most devastating losses, with but a few Aizen-Joro remaining. This calamity stemmed from their actions. Had they not provoked Cheng Chu Mo, Wuji would not have faced such ruin. Their fears materialized as Cheng Chu Mo advanced to the northernmost part of Wuji. At Heishanwan, a small boat floated on the sea, with Ernyo rowing while Cheng Chu Mo fished. Han Tu and Lang Ju chatted while roasting fish. How many brothers do you have? Han Tu inquired. 9, replied Lang Ju, flipping the fish with pride. Han Tu expressed envy. Could you two be quiet? You've been bragging all day. Come help me row the boat. Ernyo scolded. These two fools claim they can't swim. They won't row. It's just the two of them who think of such things. We've been out here all day for what? Just fish. Look at our lord. He hasn't eaten a single bite. Fishing and sleeping seem to suit him well. The two ignored Ernyo, continuing their banter. I'll let you in on a secret. Our little Gio is the lord's concubine, and she even saved him. Impressive, right? Lang Ju boasted. The couple Han Tu dared not compare themselves to the mistress. My son refers to the master as father, constantly exclaiming about the slaughter of the city. Han Tu remarked, reveling in his pride even more than a wolf. Wolf Ju's expression darkened, silently lamenting how his younger sister could only bear one child for the master. It was indeed distressing to hear this scoundrel boast in front of him. My younger sister will eventually bear children for the master. Those will be her own flesh and blood, Wolf Ju asserted, though lacking conviction in his own words. They were well aware of many matters while serving Li Shimin. The master had no heirs. The only way to have children was to have descendants, implying that only Empress Changsun could provide children for Cheng Chu Mo. Han Tu was also aware of this situation. If all the mistresses were empresses, could they all bear children? Han Tu questioned. Wolf Ju agreed, asserting that having heirs meant having children. The absence of heirs was paramount. It suggested that every woman should be treated as an empress and every man as an emperor. When a woman treats a man like an emperor, she naturally becomes an empress. Conversely, if a man treats a woman like an empress, he becomes an emperor. Love is reciprocal. Respect 1 foot and receive a mile. This is the essence of life. Conversely, if a woman regards a man as worthless, then she herself is worthless. If a man regards a woman as worthless, then he is likewise worthless. Harmony between yin and yang dictates that a husband is to be cherished, while a wife is to be adored. I am unsure if my words hold truth. If not, dismiss them as mere folly. Establish a naval base here. Inform Yuzhou to send someone, Cheng Chu Mo stated, his eyes remaining closed. After speaking, he resumed snoring. The three exchanged glances, speechless. Could it be that the master was merely speaking in his sleep? Regardless, it must be acted upon. As dusk gradually enveloped the sky, the small boat glided toward the shore. Upon reaching the shore, they found an abundance of vessels, each adorned with a white lantern. Cheng Chu Mo opened his eyes, feeling a chill that sent a shiver down his spine. Let's go take a look, he said. Aaron Yo complied, gritting his teeth as they switched boats. He silently vowed to thoroughly punish Wolf Ju and Han Tu once they disembarked. These two fools hadn't offered any assistance. Hey, brave warrior, care to have some fun? A short man called out as the boat approached. Cheng Chimo stood up, upon seeing Cheng Chimo's robust physique. The short man's eyes sparkled with delight as he bent slightly. "Want to play?" he asked again. Cheng Chimo glanced at the short man's boat, where a petite woman in white sat. Her complexion was pale, almost resembling flour. She stood and bent slightly toward Cheng Chimo, appearing just a tad taller than the short man. Upon inquiry, they learned that the couple had rowed over for an intriguing purpose. In their homeland, there was a peculiar policy. The taller the child, the greater the chance of becoming village chief. They had traveled great distances for a peculiar reason, to allow a tall man to have fun with his wife. They believed that if she conceived after returning home, their child would certainly be taller than the islanders. Cheng Chimo was precisely their ideal type. A child of his stature could not only become a village chief, but perhaps even a county chief. Cheng Chimo turned to Aaron Yo. Find a way to obtain the maritime charts leading to the island nation. This task is entrusted to you. No distractions, he instructed. Aaron Yo smacked his lips, genuinely tempted. Who wouldn't he want to indulge? Yet, he dared not defy the master's order. As they rowed ashore, Cheng Chimo walked away with his hands behind his back, with Han Tu and Wolf Ju trailing behind. Aaron Yo went in search of the charts, pondering the master's intentions regarding the island nation. What was so appealing about it? Currently, the island nation also harbored many bloodlines from Wajiguo, and the practice of crossbreeding had never ceased. One could even say that Wajiguo was the progenitor of the island nation. The islanders could not engage in archaeology. Wolf Mia finally caught up with Cheng Chimo, feeling speechless. The master was indeed formidable, having traversed the distance faster than he could. An epidemic has emerged in Henan, Wolf Mia reported upon reaching Cheng Chimo. This was a matter of utmost importance. Cheng Chimo gazed skyward, acknowledging that the inevitable had arrived. Li Ji has truly failed. If disaster relief had been prioritized, such a situation would not have arisen. Floodwaters mixing filth would surely give birth to new bacteria. The human body, unaccustomed to these new bacteria, will inevitably suffer a toll. Only when it adapts will the epidemic cease. This requires careful management. Allowing the bacteria to run rampant will result in numerous casualties. The human body requires time to acclimate. It may take a year, or perhaps 3. Historically, pandemics have typically lasted about half a year, as those with weak constitutions perish first, leaving behind those who can endure. Each epidemic results in significant loss of life, with entire cities suffering terrible fates. To minimize fatalities, medicinal support is essential. This depends on the capabilities of Sun Simiao. If his medicines can enhance human resilience, the epidemic will falter on its own. Traditional Chinese medicine emphasizes strengthening the body. This is the true essence of medicine. It should not merely address symptoms, but rather treat the individual. Chapter 274, The Inaction of the Court. Cheng Chimo initially wished to linger here a few more days, but circumstances dictated his return. With the outbreak just commencing, it was still manageable. However, should it spread nationwide, the danger would escalate. What actions are being taken in Chang'an? Cheng Chimo inquired. Wolf Mia instantly bristled with anger. There has been no movement whatsoever from Chang'an, he replied. Cheng Chimo clenched his fists, his face darkening. At this point, how can they still be unprepared? What is Li Ji contemplating? Return to Changbai Mountain, Cheng Chimo commanded. Only 8 followers accompanied him back to Changbai Mountain, leaving Aaron Yo behind to maintain order. Traveling light, they hastened to their destination. Master Long Gui was currently instructing craftsmen to construct a storage facility for medicinal herbs gathered temporarily. Sun Simiao wore a worried expression. What shall we do next? He pondered, having run out of ideas. As a revered physician, he could heal and save lives, but the overwhelming number of patients left him feeling powerless. We must do our best and leave the rest to fate, Cheng Chimo replied, not offering consolation to Sun Simiao, whose compassionate nature contrasted sharply with Cheng Chimo's resolute demeanor. First, let us transport the medicinal herbs back to Yuzhou, Cheng Chimo decided, rising to his feet. Sun Simiao followed suit, as this was their only course of action. It remained uncertain how many doctors Li Yu had managed to bring back. The team set off, with Cheng Chimo preoccupied with returning to save lives. However, Chang'an had other plans. In the Taiji Hall, the morning court session was underway. The court was no longer as it once was. The elder statesmen had long since retired to their hometowns. They had seen through Li Ji, recognizing that he was not worthy of comparison to Li Shimin. The court had lost its transparency. While Li Shimin advocated for addressing issues, Li Ji preferred to suppress them. If one cannot see or hear, then it is as if nothing has transpired. Su Jingzong had become the minister, wielding substantial power. Previously, impeachment required irrefutable evidence. Now, it had shifted. There was no longer a need for concrete proof. Mere slander sufficed. Su Jingzong specialized in this sort of work. Your Majesty, Cheng Chimo is guilty of heinous crimes, having arrested renowned physicians nationwide, resulting in the rampant spread of the plague in the Tang dynasty. I implore your Majesty to announce this to the world. Su Jingzong bowed and reported. Li Ji turned his gaze toward the ministers. The ministers bowed their heads in silence. This was not the time to provoke, and such matters could not truly harm Cheng Chimo. Furthermore, the act of shifting blame could not be so easily enacted. Did they believe the populace to be fools? In the short term, they might scorn Cheng Chimo, but with the passage of time, the truth would inevitably surface. At that juncture, the royal reputation would surely suffer. A single bout of baseless slander could lead the common people to lose faith in Chang'an, and that would be the most terrifying outcome. If the government lacks credibility, what remains of its authority? During Li Shimin's reign, the populace eagerly volunteered for military service, even when the Tang was not particularly affluent. Yet, the people were content, and the state felt like home to them. Now, however, the situation has changed. One might ask how many families would still wish for their children to enlist? The government's prestige must remain unblemished. Any blemish would lead to a fracture. Had Li Shimin been alive, Su Jingzong would not have dared to utter such words. He would have been swiftly dealt with. This was akin to desecrating the Li family's ancestral grave. What say you, esteemed ministers? Li Ji was in agreement with Su Jingzong's notion, viewing it as an effective means to undermine Cheng Chimo. To tarnish his reputation would strip him of the people's support, allowing Li Ji to rest easy. Yet, Li Ji dared not act too brazenly, fearing a rebellion from Cheng Chimo. He understood that Cheng Chimo refrained from insurrection because of Empress Changsun. This was also the reason Li Ji did not send men to pursue her once she left the palace. Li Ji was confident that as long as Empress Changsun lived, Cheng Chimo would not revolt. However, Ma Zhou could no longer contain his frustration. He stepped forward, declaring that Su Jingzong's assertions were mere nonsense. The recent plague was a chain reaction following the floods and had nothing to do with Cheng Chimo. Ma Zhou exclaimed vehemently. Li Ji's countenance darkened. Su Jingzong paid no heed to Ma Zhou. His restraint was deliberate. Ma Zhou, of humble origins and known for his kindness, had been one of the few to regard Su Jingzong as a friend before his rise to power. They had shared meals and laughter. And it was only due to Ma Zhou's hospitality that Su Jingzong had garnered any attention during his earlier struggles. He held great respect for Ma Zhou, believing it no exaggeration to say he possessed the talent for governance, a fact evident to all. Had Ma Zhou been in charge of the recent flooding, the outcome would have been markedly different. Yet, this remained a mere thought. In the balance of court affairs versus the common people's welfare, Li Ji prioritized his rule. The populace is largely ignorant. They remember grievances but forget slights. Though the court may seem inactive now, one day, should it grant the people some benefits, they would express their gratitude. It is the easiest way to placate them. Thus, they would proceed as Su Jingzong suggested. Cheng Chimo had indeed overstepped this time. Li Ji ultimately accepted Su Jingzong's counsel to malign Cheng Chimo. Ma Zhou's face flushed with anger. He was not merely defending Cheng Chimo, but advocating for the common folk. Taxes were collected year after year without fail, yet when crises arose, the court turned a blind eye. What right had such a court to demand loyalty from Ma Zhou? He declared, I am unwell and wish to return home to retire. Without waiting for a response from Li Ji, Ma Zhou exited the grand hall, unwilling to behold Li Ji's shameless visage. Li Ji's expression darkened. It was the first time since his ascension that someone dared to act thus. Once one spoke out, many would follow. The noble families had endured much indignity in recent times. Li Ji had sown discord among them, rendering them reluctant to confront him openly. Today, they chose not to endure any longer and collectively feigned illness to return home. After bowing, they departed. Li Ji stood dumbfounded, for this was unexpected. He had believed these ministers feared him. He was mistaken. They did not even fear Li Shimin. So how could they fear Li Ji? They were merely biding their time, awaiting a leader to emerge. In Li Shimin's era, there had been Wei Zhong. Today, there was Ma Zhou. Only a scant few remained in the hall. Su Jingzong, too, was rendered speechless by the unfolding situation. Changsun Wuji stepped forward, advising against hasty actions against Cheng Chimo. Your Majesty should first address the situation in Shu. We must not allow Cheng Chimo's influence to form a triangular threat. His words rang true. The regions of Shu, Gansu, and Ryu City, if united, would pose a formidable triangular alliance. Currently, Cheng Chimo had completely taken control of Gansu and Ryu City. Should he also gain dominion over Shu, his power would swell. At that point, Cheng Chimo would look down upon Chang'an. Li Ji nodded in agreement, ultimately deciding to act simultaneously. After the court session, Li Ji returned to the Ganlu Hall, where a woman approached him with a tea bowl. She was his empress, kneeling beside him. Your Majesty, you should take a moment to calm down. It is time to soothe Ma Zhou. The woman spoke gently. Li Ji did not look at her. He longed for Wu Meinyang to be his empress, but had not yet found the opportunity to depose the current one. Now, her counsel stirred schemes within him. This was interference from the harem. Once the plague subsided, it would be time to consider deposing the empress. You may leave. I wish to rest, Li Ji said. The woman felt a deep sorrow. She had envisioned being a wise and supportive empress like Changsun, yet her reality was far from that. Her words fell on deaf ears. Bowing her head, she exited the hall, feeling like the most oppressed of empresses, besmirched by Li Ji in various ways. A palace maid approached her from behind. Your Highness, it is time for your prayers, the maid announced. To Dan Temple, the woman replied. She understood Li Ji's intentions to depose her and felt powerless, only able to contemplate her future. She wished to visit Dan Temple, a place where Wu Meinyang often lingered, hoping to uncover some secrets. The thought of being deposed filled her with unwillingness. Chapter 275. More slander. Dawn Temple indeed held secrets that could preserve her position as empress, but at what cost? The woman met with the abbot and expressed her desires. She was now fervently wishing for a child. Since Cheng Chimo was not present, the abbot had no choice but to refuse her request. She left a maid behind, instructing the abbot to inform her should there be any news of success in her quest for a child, and she generously offered 100 coins as a donation. The abbot was left speechless, realizing this woman was an empress. It would be impossible for him to assist her without risking his own safety. He would have to rely on his junior brother, who at that moment was traveling in Yuzhou. Cheng Chimo's expression darkened as he read the announcement. Empress Changsun held their child close, her small face tense. Li Ji is truly beyond reason. How can he act thus? Empress Changsun had little patience for such people. In the past, she had favored Changsun Chong, who had used similar tactics to vex Cheng Chimo. Cheng Chimo had been ordered by Li Shimin to be stripped and punished, becoming the laughingstock of all of Chang'an. That had been the last time Empress Changsun had shown favoritism. Since then, she had remained partial to Cheng Chimo, defending him regardless of right or wrong. Reflecting on this, Empress Changsun could not help but smile. Cheng Chimo looked at her with curiosity. What is it that brings you such joy? He was intrigued, wondering why she laughed so heartily. Empress Changsun did not conceal her thoughts, inviting Cheng Chimo to reminisce together. Once the memories were shared, Cheng Chimo's lips curled into a smile, his anger dissipating. Empress Changsun felt a secret delight. I was so young back then, she recalled. With a somber expression, she remarked on her nearing 50 years, pondering how much time remained. Despite her well-maintained appearance, would Cheng Chimo still embrace her when she aged further in 5 or 8 years? At that time, she would be in her 60s. Would he still be willing to hold on to her, now faded with time? Which man does not favor youth? Beauty fades swiftly. If one day I grow old, will you release me to seek a secluded paradise? The Empress Changsun said. Cheng Chimo drew her into his embrace, resting his chin upon her hair. If that day truly comes, we shall go together, he replied. The Empress, breaking free from his grasp, inquired earnestly about her sisters. What about them? Cheng Chimo responded. They shall accompany us. When we are old, they will attend to us. The Empress shot him a playful glance and nestled back into his arms. Very well then. Let them serve us, she chuckled, delighting in his response. No woman is devoid of jealousy. The Empress too harbored such feelings, though she seldom expressed them. As the door swung open, the ladies entered, surrounding the Empress and Cheng Chimo. Unfazed, she blinked as they began to massage her shoulders and legs. Isolated, Cheng Chimo stood and exited the carriage, only to encounter the furious Lang Mia. Among the miscreants, traitors had emerged, an unprecedented occurrence. My lord, His Majesty has declared the disbandment of the miscreants and has slandered you among them, Lang Mia reported, eager to eliminate those traitors. Cheng Chimo smiled. His earlier anger dissipated by the Empress's reminiscing. Life unfolds in such a manner. Too many misunderstand Cheng Chimo, but they are inconsequential. He recalled how he had been wronged before, not letting it trouble him. Did slander hinder his ascent to nobility? Certainly not. Did it impede his ability to eat? Only he could deprive himself of sustenance. It matters not. Each has their ambitions, and I do not demand your loyalty. Be true to yourselves. You each lead your own lives, with no obligation to me, Cheng Chimo declared. With that, he strolled towards the factory, hands clasped behind his back. Lang Mia stared at Cheng Chimo's retreating figure in disbelief. Other lords would wish for unwavering loyalty from their subordinates, yet his lord permitted them to be accountable for themselves? Did he not fear their disloyalty? The outlaw approached, patting Lang Mia's shoulder. He does not require your loyalty, for he regards you as human beings, the outlaw stated. Lang Mia felt a surge of gratitude. He was uncertain if Li Shimin viewed them as people, but Cheng Chimo undoubtedly did. Bowing respectfully to the outlaw, he hurried to catch up with Cheng Chimo. The capital has been sealed off. No one can enter or exit. I fear many citizens may starve, Lang Mia expressed. It was unclear when he had become so conscientious, no longer just a machine for killing. It matters not. Inform Wang Xuanzi to airdrop supplies to the capital, Cheng Chimo ordered. Mobilizing the army is inadvisable due to the pandemic. If the troops were to become infected, it would spell disaster. As long as the army remains intact, there is still hope. Should they falter, all would be lost. Lang Mia acquiesced. Upon reaching the factory, thousands of doctors in shackles were escorted inside. Li Yu, wielding a whip, barked orders. Move quickly. Those who mishandled the medicine today will receive no pork, only rice and pork ribs. Lang Mia's lips twitched in disbelief. No pork. Only ribs? This fare was unreasonably tough, harder than bricks. Yet, the doctors appeared dissatisfied. To ordinary folks, this was a feast, but to them, it was trivial. Li Yu spotted Cheng Chimo from afar and rushed over. What medications are they preparing? Cheng Chimo inquired before Li Yu could speak. They are concocting remedies for diarrhea. Along with some tonics, Li Yu hurriedly explained. Cheng Chimo nodded in approval. Well done. Have the antipyretics been prepared? He asked. Li Yu shook his head, not due to negligence, but because Sun Simiao was wary of these individuals, fearing they might cause harm. Cheng Chimo furrowed his brow, casting a cold gaze at the sluggish doctors. From now on, there will be one meal a day, and they must check each other's work. Those who identify properly prepared medicines will be allowed to return home, he stated. In such times, severe penalties are necessary to instill fear in these doctors. Upon hearing the order, the doctors protested en masse. Cheng Chimo frowned at Li Yu. Execute a few, he commanded. Li Yu complied, ordering the soldiers to act. The soldiers, showing no mercy, swiftly executed over 10 individuals. The doctors, faces pale with terror, dared not utter another word. Li Yu silently acknowledged his adoptive father's decisiveness. Had he known it would be this simple, he would have executed a few sooner. Hurry up, soldiers, heed my command. Anyone who hesitates shall be executed, Li Yu shouted. Cheng Chimo did not linger and proceeded to where Sun Simiao was preparing medicines. Sun Simiao appeared exhausted, his eyes darkened, reminiscent of a giant panda from Gansu. You must take care of your health, esteemed doctor. What will become of the people if you fall ill? Cheng Chimo remarked. The doctor did not lift his head, engrossed in his work. Report, Lang Ju gasped as he burst in. The pandemic has spread beyond the capital, he announced. Cheng Chimo was taken aback. Sun Simiao's expression darkened. It was evident that someone had orchestrated this. Otherwise, how could it have spread? The capital was sealed off. How could it possibly extend? Chapter 276. The death of the child. Cheng Chimo hastened to the government office, commanding everyone to prepare for the impending nationwide pandemic. In half a month, the populace of the Tang dynasty was aware of the outbreak, while the court feigned ignorance. A chorus of grievances arose from the citizens. Local officials had but one narrative. This pandemic was the result of Cheng Chimo's sins, for he had slaughtered 70,000. It was divine retribution. Tragically, many believed it. The public opinion was manipulated by the authorities, all decrying Cheng Chimo. Eventually, the people grew weary of their protests, succumbing to high fevers. The pharmaceutical capacity in Yuzhou was limited. Had it only been the capital, it might have coped. Now, with the pandemic ravaging the nation, it was beyond Yuzhou's remedy unless the entire country united its efforts. Yet, the court remained indifferent, and no officials reported the true situation to Li Ji. Local officials turned a blind eye, indifferent to the plight of the people. Taxes were collected, and wine was consumed. In Yuzhou, Cheng Chimo appeared haggard, both mentally and physically drained. He too was involved in the pharmaceutical efforts. The gap is too vast. My lord, you should take a rest, Lang Mie suggested. Cheng Chimo set down the paper bag in his hands. This bundle of medicine could offer a commoner a chance at life. Lang Mie hesitated, unsure of how to comprehend the ruler's intentions, especially as the entire Tang dynasty condemned him. What was his purpose in this? Was it truly worth it, my lord? Lang Mie could not help but voice his thoughts. Cheng Chimo stretched languidly, pondering. When you were a child and your father struck you while your mother stood by inciting him, whom do you blame? Your father or your mother? After some contemplation, Lang Mie responded, I blame my mother. If she hadn't incited my father, he would not have struck me so harshly. With certainty, Lang Mie realized the commoners were akin to the father who punishes his son, while the court resembled the mother who incites the violence. Cheng Chimo did not fault the commoners. His ire was directed at the court. Once the epidemic subsides, I shall hold Li Ji accountable. He is inferior to Li Tai, and even more so to Li Chengqian, he remarked. Let us begin distributing the medicine, he declared. Every life saved counts. We must do what we can and leave the rest to fate. This distinguishes humans from animals, for there are many who are worse than pigs and dogs. One cannot compare humanity to beasts. That would be a degradation of one's own dignity. Lang Mie bowed in acknowledgement. The herbal packages had already been dispatched to various locations. Following the orders, distribution commenced. A heart-wrenching scene unfolded. A single village could only claim one package of herbs, which had to be brewed and shared among the children, while the elderly awaited death alone in the mountains. In some villages, the herbs were seized by the wealthy and powerful as soon as they arrived. In even grimmer situations, the local authorities plundered the supplies before distribution could begin, concocting absurd accusations of their origins, claiming they endangered the people. The commoners were not foolish. They understood these were life-saving medicines, and the officials' claims were merely an excuse to deny them access. Helpless, they could not resist. For their kitchen knives were no match for the officials' formidable swords. They could only endure in silence. Upon hearing the news, the bandits descended from their hideouts to plunder the local authorities, emboldened by their numbers and armed with the equality of their weapons. The officials dared not retaliate. Such is the nature of humanity. The herbs had not brought any relief to the populace. Instead, they plunged the Tang dynasty deeper into chaos, an unforeseen consequence for Cheng Chimo. Weighed down by despair, he lay motionless in the cart. Empress Zhongsun cradled her child, attempting to console Cheng Chimo. This time felt different. No matter how she tried to comfort him, it was futile. Cheng Chimo stared blankly at the roof of the cart. Let us retreat from the world. I am so weary, he lamented. He had not anticipated that his good intentions would result in such disastrous outcomes. The free distribution of medicine had only exacerbated the hardships of the commoners. Similarly burdened was Sun Simiao, who sat beside a well, while Long Gui stood at a distance, keeping watch, fearing Sun Simiao would despair and leap into the well. Suddenly, Sun Simiao began to strike his own face, the sound echoing sharply. Long Gui winced at the sight. What am I, an old man, to be called a divine physician? I am unworthy of such a title, Sun Simiao lamented, tears welling in his eyes. Long Gui sighed inwardly, approaching Sun Simiao to sit beside him. Old son, this is not your fault. A skilled cook cannot make a meal without rice. This epidemic struck too swiftly, and you have done your utmost, Long Gui reassured him. Sun Simiao wept. Yes, I have done my best, but is that sufficient? I am revered as a divine physician, respected wherever I go. And yet, what have I accomplished for the people? My medical expertise is mine alone. How many can I truly save? This has taught me a harsh truth. One person's strength is limited, and even the most skilled cannot save the entire world. Old Gui, I must request funds from your apprentice. I wish to establish a school and train 100,000 disciples, Sun Simiao declared, his eyes bloodshot as he gazed at Long Gui. Long Gui felt a pang of sympathy, but concealed it. To establish a school, whatever amount you require, I shall procure it, Long Gui responded. The devastation wrought by this epidemic was truly dire. If the Tang had 100,000 physicians, how could it have come to this? What was the court doing? They continued their slander, utterly unconcerned for the lives of the people. Those officials were like vampires, each one only seeking personal glory. When confronted with adversity, they merely uttered, I do not know, we are still investigating. How meticulous their words, yet they did nothing. Suddenly, a distressed individual stumbled before Sun Simiao and Long Gui, collapsing at their feet. Sun Simiao quickly assessed the man, noting he still had breath. After a brief treatment, the man regained consciousness. Quickly, tell the Lord that Princess Jinyang is trapped and has contracted the disease, he gasped before fainting once more. Long Gui rose to inform Cheng Chimo. Upon learning the news, Cheng Chimo and Empress Jiangsun were taken aback. The Empress fainted immediately. Cheng Chimo carried her back to the cart. As she regained consciousness, she grasped Cheng Chimo's arm, pleading, You must save Jinyang. You must save her. Tears streamed down her face. For among these children, she felt she owed Princess Jinyang the most. Having failed in her duties as a mother, Cheng Chimo nodded, offering a few comforting words to Empress Jiangsun before disembarking the cart to seek out Sun Simiao. Sun Simiao presented Cheng Chimo with several pills and a packet of medicine, which Cheng Chimo tucked into his cloak as he inquired about the location of Princess Jinyang before mounting his horse and departing. 5 days later, Cheng Chimo found Princess Jinyang, who lay with Wu Meinyang in a modest dwelling. Upon entering, Cheng Chimo saw Wu Meinyang's eyes flicker open in surprise before she promptly fainted. After administering a pill to Wu Meinyang, he turned to check on Princess Jinyang. She was feverish and weak, her breath faint. Cheng Chimo hurriedly administered the medicine and began efforts to cool her body. After a prolonged struggle, Princess Jinyang opened her eyes. Mother? She murmured, her gaze unfocused. Do not be afraid. Everything will be all right. Cheng Chimo reassured her, fighting back tears. Princess Jinyang showed little response. Her frail constitution rendered her vulnerable, and even with medication, she struggled to withstand the ravages of this plague. For 3 days, Cheng Chimo worked tirelessly to reduce her fever and administer medicine. Yet her condition showed no signs of improvement. On the 4th day, he stared blankly at the lifeless form of Princess Jinyang in his arms. She had succumbed. Her body could no longer endure. Wu Meinyang broke into sorrowful wails nearby. Cheng Chimo felt as if the sky had fallen. His heart turned to ash, and all his ambitions evaporated in an instant. Cradling Jinyang, he choked back tears. I will take you back to see your mother. The once unyielding Cheng Chimo wept. How could he return to face Empress Jiangsun? Chapter 277. Cheng Chimo's heart is heavy with despair. Cheng Chimo lifted Princess Jinyang's body, while the distressed individual had prepared the cart. Back to Yuzhou, Cheng Chimo uttered hoarsely, his steps heavy as he mounted the cart, his heart weighed down further. This epidemic had left Cheng Chimo feeling cold. The death of Princess Jinyang robbed him of his direction, plunging him into confusion. He placed her in the cart and led the horse towards Yuzhou, while Wu Meinyang wept silently. The 3 figures faded into the distance. Upon reaching the ground of Yuzhou, Cheng Chimo hesitated to walk quickly, uncertain of how to confront Empress Jiangsun. Brother-in-law, let us depart, Wu Meinyang suggested. She empathized with Cheng's turmoil. Yet some matters must be faced. Cheng remained silent, his head bowed as he led his horse onward. Upon returning to Yuzhou City, he encountered Empress Jiangsun, who looked at him with a face full of trepidation. Chimo, she murmured his name, biting her lip. I am sorry, Cheng replied. These 3 are truly heavy. The Empress shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. No, you are deceiving me, are you not? Zizi must be sleeping, right? You promised me. As she spoke, she forced a smile and approached the carriage, lifting the curtain to gaze at Zizi, who lay within. Her world spun, and she let out a bitter laugh. It cannot be. How could this happen? You promised me, she lamented. Cheng's heart felt as if it were being cleaved in 2. You promised me, echoed in his mind. A final straw that broke him. He had exhausted countless fortunes to procure medicine for the people, only to be met with scorn. The remedies he produced failed to heal them, instead deepening their suffering. His good intentions had wrought unfortunate outcomes. Unable to save Zizi, what could he possibly do? What truly is right? Tell me what is right. Cheng's mind was blank, the question reverberating in his ears. He walked away, with Langmi and Longjue trailing a step behind him. I wish to be alone. You may go, he said. The 2 stood in silence, exchanging glances, astonished by their lord's unfamiliar demeanor. Cheng continued to distance himself, riding away from Yuzhou City. He discarded his token at the city gate and turned back to gaze at the city. What is truly right? He murmured to himself as he departed Yuzhou. No one knew his destination. He could bear it no longer. He was human, not a machine. 6 months after the outbreak ceased, the death toll surpassed 1 million. and Cheng was branded the greatest villain, bearing the brunt of all blame. Empress Changsun returned to Gansu with the women, never to emerge again. Sun Simiao went to Gansu to establish a school. Yuzhou fell under Li Yu's control, leaving only Cheng Chumo's whereabouts unknown. By the banks of the Yalu River, a burly man clad in animal skins strolled along the shore. Whenever hunger struck, he would catch a fish. He arrived at a bustling small town, heading for a stall. "Do you buy wolf pelts?" he inquired. The stall owner nodded and poured a bowl of water for him. Wolf pelts made for excellent decorations and fetched a handsome price in Chang'an. The man set down his heavy bundle and sat on a long bench to drink. The owner squatted down to inspect the 5 wolf pelts, noting their pristine condition and the manner in which they had been killed. Though he considered haggling, he refrained upon seeing the man's imposing stature, fearing he might meet a violent end. 100 coins each, the owner stated. The man nodded, collecting several pieces of paper currency as he departed. The currency was widely circulated, convenient, and reliable. It had not depreciated in over a decade. Such was the credit of the aristocracy. They printed as much paper as they possessed gold. Cheng Chumo took his currency and approached a stall selling tofu pudding. 1 bowl of tofu pudding and a jar of wine, he ordered. The owner, a 20-year-old widow, placed a bowl of tofu pudding on the table and then went to fetch a jar of wine, which she sold exclusively to him, as he was her only customer. An exceptional case indeed. She set the jar on the table and returned with a beautiful porcelain cup, a special treat prepared just for him. Cheng began to drink, alternating between the tofu and wine. The widow, no longer attending to other patrons, sat across from him, gazing intently. She too was a tragic figure, having never seen her husband before he was slain by bandits. Fate had dealt her a cruel hand. She had taken over her husband's tofu stall, and 5 years had passed since. Many sought her hand in marriage, yet she remained steadfast, caring for her elderly mother. Though not her biological mother, she loved her dearly. The two relied on one another. "May I have a taste?" the widow asked, without waiting for a response. She took a spoonful of tofu pudding and sipped from the wine cup. The flavor was peculiar. Tofu and wine together were an eternal pairing. She stood to retrieve a stack of pickled vegetables, resuming her place opposite the man. Whether the dish was palatable was unimportant. The two combined offered a singular sensation, smoothness. The man remained unfazed, continuing to enjoy his meal. A group of attendants approached, shoving other customers aside. The widow recoiled slightly, fear creeping in as she bit her lip and stood. "What are you doing? Do not bully my patron," she protested, her small hands trembling within her sleeves. A young man, hands clasped behind his back, stepped before her, greed glinting in his eyes as he leered at her, wishing to consume her as one would tofu pudding. The widow took a step back. "You," she stammered. The young man laughed heartily. "Haha, it is your fortune that I have taken an interest in you. If you do not accompany me today, I shall smash your stall," he boasted, his voice brimming with arrogance. His father was the county magistrate, and he wielded his privilege with abandon. The attendants laughed, starting to drive away patrons, even flipping over tables. They approached the burly man but did not dare to make a move. His bald head and robust build suggested he was not to be trifled with. "Our master is the county magistrate. Wise ones should leave promptly," one attendant barked. Faced with the man's imposing presence, they could only resort to threats. The burly man continued to drink, ignoring them. The young man frowned, casting a glance at him. 10 coins. Go eat elsewhere, he commanded. He was brash, but not a fool. This man did not appear to be harmless. The burly man downed the last sip of wine and placed several coins on the table. "I enjoy drinking and eating tofu pudding here. If you leave now, I shall spare you," he stated. The young man felt a chill run down his spine upon meeting the burly man's gaze, as if he had fallen into an icy abyss. The murderous intent was unmistakable. He lowered his head and retreated with his entourage. The burly man resumed his seat, continuing to savor his tofu pudding. The widow wiped her tears and began to tidy up the ruined tableware, weeping as she worked. The man sighed inwardly. He had not intended to interfere, yet he could not resist. If he had chosen to remain uninvolved, he would not be Cheng Chumo. Rising to assist the widow, he helped her restore order. Once finished, as Cheng prepared to leave, the widow returned the coins from the table to him. "Thank you, but I cannot accept your money," the widow said. Cheng Chumo, undeterred, swiftly pocketed the coins and made his way to the yamen. "I wish to see the county magistrate," he declared upon arriving at the entrance. The constable was furious. "Who the hell are you? Is this your family's yamen? Get lost," he bellowed, accustomed to wielding power. He was unprepared for such audacity, particularly from someone seeking an audience with the magistrate. In response to the constable's tirade, a thuggish aide stepped forward. Cheng Chumo, with a powerful grip, seized the aide by the collar, effortlessly lifting him off the ground. "What did you say?" he inquired in a calm tone. The constable was taken aback by the sheer strength displayed, yet refused to show weakness. Typically, he was the one who bullied others. He could not bear the thought of being intimidated. Just as he began to retort, Cheng Chumo exerted more force, flinging the aide 5 meters away, where he landed heavily on the street, struggling momentarily before failing to rise. Cheng Chumo turned his attention to another constable, who trembled and quickly averted his gaze, as if the earlier incident had never occurred. "Where is the county magistrate?" Cheng Chumo asked, silently reflecting on the cowardice of these men, who had just moments ago been so arrogant. Reluctantly, the constable turned back, grinning awkwardly, and gestured towards the interior. Chung Chumo strode confidently inside, while the constable trailed behind, nearly bowing in submission. Upon entering the main hall, Chung Chumo found the county magistrate asleep, clearly displeased at being disturbed. How dare you intrude upon this court? The constables shouted angrily. Ignoring their protests, Chung Chumo focused on the magistrate. I did not wish to cause trouble. You have a fine son, and I have no desire to bully a child, so I must confront you instead, he stated. Chung Chumo advanced towards the magistrate, prompting the constables to step forward in an attempt to block him. However, they were no match for Chung Chumo's strength. Within moments, they lay sprawled on the ground, groaning. Silence, Chung Chumo commanded. He had shown restraint. Had he acted as he once would have, none would have dared to utter a sound. Approaching the magistrate, Chung Chumo advanced step by step, while the magistrate retreated, trembling. Don't come any closer, he stammered, until he found himself cornered against the wall. Chung Chumo stood before him, their noses nearly touching. Can you discipline your son? He inquired. The magistrate nodded vigorously, fearing for his life. Chung Chumo took a step back, nearly colliding with the magistrate's aged visage, casting a warning glare. The magistrate shivered, nodding fervently, terrified of incurring Chung Chumo's wrath. When one possesses overwhelming strength, the path ahead is always clear. The magistrate's sole thought was to placate this formidable man. There was much to discuss. Chung Chumo chose not to linger in the yamen. With maturity, he had come to understand that the world was not merely about violence. It was also about human relationships and the complexities of social interactions. After his departure, the magistrate crumpled to the floor, the secretary hastily rushing to assist him. County magistrate, we must file a complaint against him, the secretary urged. The magistrate delivered a resounding slap to the secretary's face. I am the county magistrate. Am I to file a complaint against a commoner? I would be the laughingstock. Do you wish to ruin my career? His secretary's foolish suggestions only served to deepen his ire. Rising to his feet, the magistrate's face darkened with fury. This debacle was instigated by his son, and since he could not confront Chung Chumo, he would take it out on his son instead. Fuming, he stormed into the courtyard, where his son was amusing himself with a bird. The sight of his idle son only intensified the magistrate's rage, and he searched for an implement to deliver a proper lesson. Ultimately, he selected a slender willow branch from a nearby tree and approached his son, unleashing a flurry of blows upon him. The magistrate's son cried out in pain, attempting to flee. If you dare run, don't bother coming back, the magistrate roared. The commotion drew the attention of his wife, who rushed out, horrified to see her son being punished. How dare you strike my son? Without the Wong family, would you even be a magistrate? I will not stand for this, she shouted, charging at the magistrate to scratch him. The magistrate retaliated with a slap across her face. A doting mother ruins her son. Do you have any idea how dangerous the people he has offended are? I can assure you, he has crossed paths with those who have blood on their hands. His words, laden with fear, were an exaggeration. Chung Chumo had indeed changed significantly, masking his former rage. Had the old Chung Chumo confronted these adversaries, he would have long been extinguished. The magistrate's fabrications were merely a means to intimidate his wife, as she prepared to protest. Her husband's remarks left her momentarily speechless. Although she was headstrong, she was not foolish. She realized her husband must have encountered someone formidable to elicit such fear. He would not dare to strike her. Seizing the willow branch from his hand, she declared, "Leave this to me. This child requires discipline." Being a woman of noble lineage, she understood the depths of the world, aware that some individuals were not to be trifled with. A misstep could lead to dire consequences. She had heard of landlords being slain en masse, their heads rolling. The wife began to strike her son with the willow branch, who promptly turned to flee. Stand still. You good for nothing. I allowed you to run wild, and now you shall face the consequences, she shouted, pursuing him. The magistrate silently approved of her actions, recognizing her as a true daughter of the Wong family, understanding the weight of her decisions. He felt a sense of pride, knowing he had successfully intimidated his wife, and his fabrications had spared him from disaster. If he had sought assistance from the Wong family, it would have led to catastrophic repercussions. The revelation of Chung Chumo's identity would spell doom for his entire family. No action would be needed from Chung Chumo. The Wong family would ensure their house was clean of threats. The widow's stall remained protected, and the magistrate's son would no longer dare to provoke trouble. Today, after selling his furs, Chung Chumo arrived at the widow's stall early, ready to enjoy some wine. The widow returned just then, accompanied by a large cart filled with soybeans, which she had hired. At her doorstep, she handed the driver a paper note worth 10 copper coins. Please wait a moment. I will unload it shortly, she said, reluctant to part with the unloading fee, as she often did the work herself. The driver nodded, opting not to assist. He had helped her before, but the widow had declined his assistance. Some debts were best not incurred, especially for a widow, who often faced much gossip. Observing the widow struggling with the cargo, Chung Chumo rose to lend a hand, eager to hasten the arrival of his beloved tofu pudding. He effortlessly lifted half a bag of soybeans, while the widow typically managed only a half bag at a time. With one hand, Chung Chumo grasped 2 bags, bringing 4 bags of soybeans into the house, where he encountered the widow. Her cheeks flushed with warmth, and her heart swelled with joy. Thank you, brother, she expressed gratefully. Chung Chumo nodded, placing the soybeans down. Within a short while, the entire cart was unloaded, a task that would have taken the widow an hour to complete. Cheng Chumo sat upon a long bench, a bowl of tofu pudding and a jar of wine before him. He spoke, prompting the young widow to hastily serve him. Before long, he savored the warmth of the tofu pudding as the widow brought forth another jar of wine, along with a special cup designated for him. She also presented a plate of pickled vegetables. Cheng Chumo commenced his drinking, while a vendor nearby called out, "Sweet potatoes, 1 coin each. Bring one," he shouted. And the vendor responded promptly, delivering the sweet potato to him. Cheng Chumo beamed at the potato, reveling in the fact that it had finally become accessible to the common folk. He peeled open the sweet potato and took a bite, closing his eyes as memories flooded back, reminiscent of his days setting sail with the Marine Corps. After a long pause, he opened his eyes to find the young widow sitting across from him, pretending to be nonchalant. She stole glances at him while he drank, her cheeks tinged with a rosy hue. "What are you staring at?" Cheng Chumo inquired, feeling slightly uneasy under her gaze. The widow quickly lowered her head, the flush spreading to her ears. Stammering, she attempted to deflect. "I didn't see anything. Is the wine good?" Her excuse was feeble, yet she felt relieved for having thought of something to say, avoiding further embarrassment. Cheng Chumo, at a loss for words, encouraged her, "Just say if you like it." As he pushed the wine cup towards her, "Drink up." The young widow stared at him in surprise. Although she sold wine, she had never tasted it herself. It was too expensive. The wine was exclusively for Cheng Chumo, as few could afford to drink while enjoying tofu pudding. Moreover, who among the good people would pair wine with tofu pudding? "No, you drink it. I was merely asking," she hastily declined. Cheng Chumo smiled at her, and the widow, already shy, felt an urge to vanish under his gaze. Torn between running away and staying, she timidly picked up the wine cup, avoiding his eyes, and tilted her head back, finishing the contents in one go. After swallowing, she smacked her lips, tasting both bitterness and sweetness. She returned the cup to him, saying, "Thank you. It was quite good," her expression resembling that of a child sneaking honey, with joy and contentment written all over her face. "Then keep me company with your drinking," Cheng Chumo said, pushing half of the sweet potato towards her. The widow cradled the golden sweet potato in her hands, having long wished to buy one but never found the courage. She pinched off a small piece and tasted it, her face lighting up with satisfaction as she dashed inside, calling out, "Mother, you must try this. It's delicious." Cheng Chumo took another sip of wine as the widow returned with a small bowl. There was but one cup, so he poured some wine for her, and they drank together. When a customer arrived for tofu pudding, the widow turned them away, choosing to grant Cheng Chumo a reprieve. An elderly woman emerged, one hand holding a plate of vegetables and the other leaning on a cane. "Here is a plate of wild greens for you," the old woman offered. Cheng Chumo stood to accept the dish, while the widow beamed with delight, wishing Cheng Chumo could stay every day. The old woman said little. Turning back inside, "You must try the dish prepared by Old Song," the widow urged. Cheng Chumo picked up his chopsticks and sampled a bite, nodding in approval. "It's delicious," he stated, though in truth, it was far from delectable, bitter and astringent, lacking any other flavor. The widow stuck out her tongue, agreeing that it was indeed good. They continued to drink, and the widow imbibed a bit too much, her words tumbling out as if she were eager to share her entire past with Cheng Chumo. He listened intently, refraining from divulging his own mundane history. "Tax collection, 20 coins. A few tax collectors were heard next door. When they arrived at the widow's shop and spotted Cheng Chumo, they froze in shock, some even covering their faces in fear of retribution. The widow stood up, pulling 20 coins from her bosom, looking pained. "Could you spare me just 1 coin?" she pleaded. The collectors were on the verge of tears. With Cheng Chumo present, they dared not demand payment. They were visibly conflicted, lamenting their unfortunate fate of encountering him. Cheng Chumo downed the remainder of his wine. "What is the tax rate?" he asked. The collectors fell silent, heads bowed. 70%, one finally muttered. "This is the border. No one oversees it," Cheng Chumo remarked coolly. The collectors shuddered, forcing themselves to speak. 70%. Cheng Chumo shot them a cold glance. "Life is hard. Why make it harder for the common folk? Tell your magistrate I require an explanation. Without one, I shall strangle him," he stated in a chilling tone. The collectors, feeling as if they had been granted a reprieve, turned and prepared to flee. "Return the money, and from now on, let it be 30%. If you demand even a fraction more, you will face dire consequences," Cheng Chumo warned. The collectors nodded vigorously, scampering away. Cheng Chumo continued to drink while the widow gazed at him with admiration. The townsfolk bowed to Cheng Chumo, recognizing him as a true hero, with a single command. The collectors complied, too frightened to utter a word in dissent. Some shopkeepers approached, placing jars of wine on the table before departing without a word. They were unsure of Cheng Chumo's temperament and dared not engage him. The innkeeper even sent over a few of his best dishes for Old Song to prepare. "Deliver them to Old Song," Cheng Chumo instructed. The widow complied, carrying the dishes to him. Cheng Chumo watched her retreating figure, feeling a pang of sympathy for the young widow, who had been sent away in her youth. As she grew, she worked for the Liu family in Fanyang, saving enough for her dowry with the sole wish of bringing her mother along. Her husband's family consented. However, on her wedding day, her groom was slain, allegedly by marauders from Goguryeo. Since then, the widow had to care for her mother while managing the shop, leading a life of hardship. It was difficult to remain a widow. Each night, she struggled to find sleep. Her mother, witnessing her plight, urged her to remarry. The widow was tempted. especially as Ching Chumo visited daily to drink. She had contemplated expressing her feelings, but hesitated to voice them. The widow returned, each dish halved. Old Song suggested we share a meal, but I didn't want to interrupt your enjoyment. If you drink too much, you can just sleep here, she said. Her cheeks as red as ripe apples. This hint was almost a direct invitation for Ching Chumo to indulge more, implying that if he drank heavily, he could share the bed with her. All right, Ching Chumo replied. The widow felt a surge of joy as she rose to refill his cup. Time passed, and Ching Chumo became intoxicated for the first time, reveling in the happiness of the day. The widow supported him as they stumbled into the room, their bodies close. And she had no thoughts of restraint. Ching Chumo was heavy. She had just laid him on the bed and was removing his shoes when a voice called from outside. Is the hero in there? The magistrate is at the door. The young widow hesitated to respond, fearing the magistrate had come to create trouble. The magistrate called out again from outside. Old Song, leaning on his cane, rose to his feet. I shall go, he declared. The young widow shook her head, clutching Old Song's arm. Mother, you mustn't go. I will, she insisted. Old Song patted her hand to reassure her. Ultimately, the mother and daughter stepped out of the shop together. The hero is asleep, the young widow remarked. Old Song fell silent, thinking the girl seemed rather foolish. Did she not fear that those individuals might take advantage of the situation? Old Song was overthinking it. They dared not do so. The magistrate then clarified his intentions. The young widow listened with a dazed expression. It became clear why the taxes were so exorbitant. It was not only the Tang dynasty imposing taxes, but also the Goryeo demanding their share. Should one refuse to pay, Goryeo would send people to plunder. The magistrate revealed that this was how the young widow's husband met his demise. The county was truly impoverished, unable to pay the taxes owed to Goryeo. Consequently, the Goryeo people came to kill. That day, many lives were lost. Years had passed, and the young widow felt little sorrow, only deep indignation. Goryeo was bullying the people. The locals had it hard enough without such oppression. The magistrate noticed the young widow's pained expression and offered a wry smile, feeling powerless himself. With tax season approaching, Goryeo would soon arrive, and if the payments were insufficient, many more would perish. Chapter 280. Two pets. The magistrate departed, and the young widow supported Old Song back to the shop. Old Song did not return to bed. I shall sleep in the courtyard tonight, he stated. The young widow's cheeks flushed red, understanding her mother's implication. Mother, she chided playfully. Old Song ignored her, chuckling as he left. The young widow gazed at the sleeping Ching Chumo, torn with conflicting emotions. She approached the bedside, hesitating for a long while before daring to lie down. A night of silence ensued. The young widow spent the entire night seated on a stool. In truth, sharing a room for one night made them akin to a family. There was no implication of infidelity. Their bond was one of a de facto marriage, as was customary in ancient times. Ching Chumo awoke, feeling refreshed from a deep slumber, forgetting how long it had been since he had slept in a proper bed. As he sat up, the young widow panicked. Ching Chumo chuckled inwardly at her reaction. Was it truly necessary? Having experienced such situations before, he found it unremarkable. The young widow, however, was experiencing it for the first time and was too embarrassed to raise her gaze. Ching Chumo approached her and placed a handful of banknotes into her hand. The young widow began to cry. What is this money for? Am I to be treated like a beggar? I don't want it. You should leave, she said. Her face cold. Ching Chumo was at a loss for words. I do not wish to deal with money. You will handle it from now on, he replied. The young widow stared at him in bewilderment, her cheeks burning, mistakenly believing it to be a parting gift. I'm hungry, Ching Chumo announced. The young widow went to prepare a meal, which she quickly finished. At the dining table, she recounted the magistrate's words to Ching Chumo. After finishing his last bite, he rose. What are Goryeo to us? Do not worry, he reassured her. The young widow nodded, clearing the table. Ching Chumo stepped outside, while the young widow sat down to count the banknotes in her lap. Wow, there are so many, she exclaimed. Old Song smiled broadly, remarking, a wolf travels 1,000 miles to feast, while a dog travels 1,000 miles to scavenge. Those with skill shall never go hungry. I will be away for a few days, Ching Chumo announced from outside. The young widow replied affirmatively, understanding that one should not restrain a man. If he possessed the ability, he should venture forth. Opportunities are forged through courage. Ching Chumo left the small town and arrived at the Yalu River. There, a northeast tiger lay asleep by the riverbank. Nearby, a black bear was diligently assisting the tiger in removing fleas. The tiger, growing increasingly annoyed, turned its large head away and just then noticed Ching Chumo approaching. With a mighty roar, the tiger rose. The bear, startled, flinched, and in its irritation, swatted the tiger's head, as if to scold it for making such a racket. The tiger's roar was abruptly silenced as it glared at the bear, which, undeterred, stood up to await Ching Chumo's arrival. As Ching Chumo approached the two beasts, he patted their large heads. What shall we hunt today? He inquired. These two wild creatures had been captured by Ching Chumo. After a month of rigorous training, they had submitted to him and had since become his loyal companions in hunting. The bear pointed in a direction with its paw, and Ching Chumo led them onward. When tired, he would ride the tiger. The tiger could endure short rides, but not long ones. Its weakness lay in its back. The bear also wished to ride the tiger, but the tiger bared its teeth, refusing. The bear, undeterred, continued to follow, playfully prodding the tiger's rear as they walked. The tiger, in a fit of rage, found itself helpless against the bear. which was no easy opponent. A single swipe from the bear could snap a small tree in two. Why was the bear known as the blind bear? If encountered, one could lie down, and the bear would not attack, as it was said to be blind. This notion was misleading. The bear adhered to a code of conduct and refrained from attacking those who lay still. Additionally, it was not hungry. Ahead lay a herd of creatures resembling deer, but not quite. The tiger did not even glance their way, as consuming such creatures would diminish its intelligence. The bear, displaying disdain, wondered why they had to encounter these foolish animals. The most easily captured creatures in the northeast were the daft roe deer. On this fertile black land, the foolish roe deer were quite renowned. One could easily strike roe deer with a stick or scoop fish with a ladle. Wild chickens would fly right into the pot. The foolish roe deer noticed them, glanced back, and took a few steps away, only to stop and look at Ching Chumo again. Then it ran a few more steps before stopping once more. Finally, it timidly approached Ching Chumo, scrutinizing him with curiosity, eager to discern what sort of creature he was. Ching Chumo's expression darkened. He felt an overwhelming urge to strike it, wishing to crack its skull open. He finally understood how such a foolish animal could thrive and flourish in its world. There were no predators in its eyes, and its heart overflowed with unshakable confidence. The tiger bared its fangs at the foolish roe deer in an attempt to frighten it away. Yet, the roe deer was unafraid. It cast a glance at the tiger, then turned its gaze back to Ching Chumo. The tiger was familiar to it, and rather handsome. But what was Ching Chumo? Why did he walk in a manner reminiscent of the bear? The roe deer's big, watery eyes brimmed with wisdom as it looked at the bear and then back at the tiger. Suddenly, it seemed to understand. Ching Chumo must be the offspring of the tiger and the bear, an undeniable truth. For the first time, Ching Chumo deciphered the expressions of animals. To call it foolish seemed inaccurate, for its eyes radiated wisdom. To label it clever was equally challenging, as it bore no connection to intelligence. The bear swiped at the foolish roe deer, but the deer did not flinch. Instead, it leaned forward slightly to make it easier for the bear to strike. The bear, frustrated, slammed its head against the ground. The tiger, not faring much better, began to dig furiously at the earth, venting its frustration. Ching Chumo let out a bitter smile, reassuring himself in his heart that it was unkind to bully the simpleton. He retrieved a piece of bread from his bag, which had been prepared by the widow. The simpleton took the bread and departed. The tiger and the bear, however, were not pleased. They had yet to taste the bread. Why should that fool be allowed to eat it? They charged forward, delivering a brutal beating to the simpleton and reclaiming the bread. The simpleton limped away, continuously calling out as if cursing the bear and the tiger for their shamelessness in stealing. The bear tore off a small piece of bread for the tiger. The tiger glanced at the bear's portion, then at its own, filled with rage. How dare the bear bully the tiger, distributing the spoils unevenly. The bear ignored the tiger, sitting calmly and eating the bread before it. In that moment, it truly seemed blind. Enraged, the tiger circled the bear, ultimately having no choice but to seek justice from Ching Chumo, nuzzling its large head against Chung's chest. Ching Chumo sighed, pondering what creatures he had raised. He offered another piece of bread to the tiger to quell the situation and continued onward. The bear, following along, licked its paws, savoring the taste of the bread, while the tiger kept its mouth shut, fearing the flavor might escape. They soon encountered a herd of sheep. Chung pointed at the flock with one hand. The tiger sprang into action. The bear refrained from attacking. Capturing a sheep was far too easy. Before long, the tiger returned, proudly carrying a sheep and dropping it to the ground without needing Cheng's command. The bear began to skin the sheep while the tiger watched. Cheng was busy starting a fire. The bear offered the sheep's entrails to the tiger, which was overjoyed, its tail wagging incessantly. The bear playfully patted the tiger's head with its bloodied paw. The tiger, behaving like a pampered pet, accepted the entrails with satisfaction. Cheng was left speechless, questioning whether they truly were beasts. Chapter 281. Returning to the city with pets, Ching Chumo ignited the bonfire, and the bear had prepared the meat. The tiger, having found several thick branches, watched as the bear skewered the meat and brought it over to Cheng. The bear hesitated to approach the fire, fearful of it after a previous incident where it got burned, resulting in its darkened fur. Cheng placed the meat on a rack, adding firewood to the flames, then reclined leisurely. The tiger kept watch while the bear turned the skewers. Cheng mused how delightful it would be to have a jug of wine. Resting his hands behind his head while gazing at the blue sky and white clouds, slightly tilting his head to avoid the glaring sun. Suddenly, he heard the sound of hooves, the kind that could be heard from a distance when close to the ground. 13 horses, Cheng remarked. Such was the skill of a soldier, he could roughly estimate the number of riders. Soon, 13 riders approached leisurely. The bear and the tiger concealed themselves in the grass. 3 men dismounted, eyeing the roasted sheep on the fire before turning their attention to Cheng. Gamsa Hamnada, the leader greeted. Cheng had no interest in exchanging pleasantries. Not understanding their words, he cleared his throat. The bear and tiger sprang forth. The tiger tackled one man, sinking its teeth into his neck, killing him instantly. The bear, more feral, swiftly dispatched another with a single swipe, its motions fluid and professional. Cheng caught a whiff of the faint metallic scent of blood. The tiger dragged the carcass away, eager to take a bite. The bear swatted the tiger's backside with its paw. How shameless to eat anything. It seemed to scold. What if it resembles the master? What if the master punishes us for eating it? Cheng sat up, placing his hands on his knees, gazing at the bear. He understood that the more one knew, the heavier the burden of life became. Chung was weary of the complexities of the Tang dynasty, lamenting to himself that some beings were even less admirable than bears, gnawing on bloodied buns. Rising, he approached the fire to turn the meat. Cooking for beasts did not require thoroughness. They preferred it less charred. 5 minutes of cooking was ideal. After a while, Chung divided the meat, giving each beast a half. He left one leg to roast further. The two beasts squatted nearby, eating. The bear took a bite and frowned at the taste, staring at Chung. Chung reached into his pocket and tossed a packet of salt to the bear, which finally seemed satisfied. Once they had eaten their fill, Chung led the two beasts to a cave filled with his belongings. He picked up a Tang saber and a long spear, loading bullets into a pouch to tie onto the tiger's back, while instructing the bear to carry the spear. "Let us go," he declared, stepping out of the cave first. After emerging, the bear piled large stones at the cave's entrance, making several trips to seal it shut. "You two will accompany me into the city this time. Once inside, you mustn't frighten anyone," Chung instructed. After saying this, he mounted the tiger's back. The tiger let out a fearsome roar, scattering the smaller creatures in the vicinity. It was the king of this land. The following day, Chung returned to the small town. The guards, upon seeing the tiger, turned and fled. The tiger roared incessantly, "Tremble, mortals!" The bear, curious, blocked an elderly man who was running slowly, eyeing the man's clothing. The bear desired to try on something similar to what its master wore. The old man collapsed to the ground, paralyzed with fear. The bear sat down and began to tear at the old man's clothes. The old man shut his eyes tightly, recalling the wisdom of his ancestors. When faced with a bear, one should play dead. Why won't this bear leave? What is it doing tearing my clothes? Could it be a female bear? He wondered. Soon, the bear managed to strip the old man bear, attempting to wear the clothes, but failing miserably. Chung approached with a dark expression, pinching the bear's long snout and giving it a firm tug, slightly easing his grip. "Baden," Chung scolded, ruffling the bear's snout. The bear sneezed repeatedly, covering its nose with its paws, finding the situation far from amusing. Chung helped it dress properly and took out several banknotes, crouching to place them in the old man's hand. "My apologies, sir. Please purchase yourself a new outfit," Chung said. He then stood and led the two beasts into the town. Wherever they went, people screamed in terror and fled rapidly. Upon reaching a shop, Chung found the widow tidying up the tables. Upon seeing Chung followed by two wild beasts, her eyes rolled back in shock. Her only thought was that she was being kidnapped by these enormous creatures. Chung stepped forward and scooped her up, chuckling softly. "Why so timid?" The widow, though appearing brave, was merely acting, for without her courage, no one would stand strong for her. He carried her into the room. "Hello, Aunt Song," Chung greeted, gently placing the widow on the bed. Aunt Song managed to smile, inquiring, "What is up with that large bear?" She could sense that the two beasts were connected to Chung, but she was uncertain. "I raised them as if they were dogs, obedient and docile," Chung Chumo explained. Old Song smiled wryly. They were clearly a tiger and a bear. Chung Chumo stepped outside to fetch two large iron basins, filling them with tofu pudding, which he placed upon the table. The bear pointed at the basin, and Chung Chumo understood its meaning. It refused to eat without salt. He retrieved a jar of salt from the shop and set it on the table as he began preparing his meal. The bear, using its paws, poured salt into the basin, then dipped its long snout in to taste. It found it salty. Setting down the salt jar, it lifted the basin and placed it on the ground. The tiger lay down and began to eat, while the bear consumed from another basin that had no salt. Chung Chumo served himself a bowl of tofu pudding and poured a jug of wine, taking a seat to indulge. The townsfolk, witnessing the wild beasts feasting, hid at a distance to observe. "Father, look at that tiger eating tofu pudding. I want some too," a child exclaimed. An adult quickly covered the child's mouth, fearful of speaking too loudly. After all, the tiger's paw was larger than the child's head, an intimidating presence. The county magistrate arrived, trembling at the sight of the tiger and daring not to approach. Gritting his teeth, he steeled himself and sat beside Chung Chumo, secretly contemplating why the young widow favored him. He exuded a sense of safety. Chung Chumo shifted slightly, adjusting his utensils. "Let us speak of matters at hand," he said. The magistrate, undeterred by embarrassment, reported that the Gaojuli had dispatched a tax-collecting team, expected to arrive in 3 days. Chung Chumo nodded. Gaojuli was indeed the perennial adversary of the Tang dynasty. The Tang had vanquished the Turks with relative ease, yet Gaojuli persisted like a stubborn fly, re-emerging no matter the assault. "Inform me upon their arrival," Chung Chumo instructed. The magistrate bowed deeply, placing his trust in Chung Chumo. As long as he was present, Gaojuli would not dare to bully the townsfolk. To raise a tiger is heroic. To nurture one, especially with a bear, is another matter entirely. The magistrate departed, while the young widow, peering from the doorway with her head tilted, hesitated to emerge, intimidated by the size of the tiger. Chung Chumo approached the door, taking her hand and leading her before the tiger. "Touch it," he encouraged. The widow shook her head, on the verge of tears, too frightened to comply. Chapter 282, The Arrival of Li Tai. Chung Chumo gently placed her hand on the tiger's head. Initially timid, the widow gradually acclimated, her fear dissipating. Chung Chumo returned to his drink while the widow squatted beside the tiger, stroking its coarse fur, which was not as soft as a wolf's. Wolf fur could be crafted into brushes, but tiger fur could not. The tiger, displaying its tolerance, lay still, allowing the widow to touch it, occasionally snorting softly. How adorable! She exclaimed with delight. The bear, envious, approached, but was ignored by the widow. It sat opposite her, its face a mask of pleading, extending its long snout for her to touch. The bear's nose was a no-go zone, yet the fact that it allowed her to stroke it revealed its desire to please her. The widow reached out, feeling the bear's damp nose. So large, she remarked. Thus, 3 days passed. Today, the widow was cooking beans, with the bear assisting by carrying them while the tiger guarded the stove. The county magistrate rushed over, breathless. The heroes have arrived, he announced. Cheng Chumo stood, seizing the Tang broadsword. The bear set down the yellow beans, shouldering a gun, while the tiger carried a pouch of ammunition, following closely. Cheng Chumo retrieved a long gun from the bear's back, cradling it in his left hand while pulling back the bolt with his right. Click, click. He aimed at the soldiers from Gaojali below. Bang. The gunshot rang out, claiming 1 life. Cheng Chumo shook his head. He hadn't practiced in a while and felt slightly off. He had aimed for the head, but struck an eye instead. Taking a deep breath, he fired continuously, the gunshots echoing as soldiers fell one after another. The Gaojali soldiers, gripped by terror, had never witnessed such a scene. Hundreds stood frozen, falling victim to Cheng Chumo's marksmanship. Retreat, the leader shouted. Bang. His command was abruptly silenced as Cheng Chumo shot him dead, with their leader fallen. The remaining Gaojali soldiers scattered in panic. Cheng Chumo descended from the tower, mounting his horse and drawing his Tang broadsword. Go! The warhorse galloped forth, charging out of the small town. The magistrate watched in awe. This was truly remarkable. Soon catching up, he swung the Tang broadsword, causing Gaojali soldiers to fall one after the other. The tiger was ferocious, pouncing like a hungry predator, while the bear, though formidable, could not run fast and lagged behind. They pursued the fleeing soldiers to the banks of the Yalu River, where the Gaojali jumped into the water, desperately paddling to the opposite shore. Cheng Chumo ceased his pursuit, returning to the city with his 2 companions. Upon entering, the townsfolk greeted them with enthusiastic cheers. Some carried chickens and ducks, prepared for the tiger and the bear, while others brought wine, a gesture from Cheng Chumo. The county magistrate personally bore a pig, welcoming the heroes back from battle, panting heavily as he struggled with the weight. Cheng Chumo chuckled as he returned to the shop. The young widow, anxiously waiting, felt joy upon seeing Cheng Chumo return, wanting to leap into his embrace, yet feeling too shy to do so, lowering her head in silence. I'm hungry, Cheng Chumo remarked. The widow went to prepare a meal, aided by a group of townsfolk. Once the feast was ready, a grand spread adorned the table. The widow approached, wiping her hands on her apron. Try the fish I stewed, she urged, confidence evident in her cooking. The fish from the Yalu River was abundant and inexpensive, and she often prepared it. Cheng Chumo picked up chopsticks and took a bite, offering no comment as he savored the dish alongside his wine. The townsfolk provided food for the 2 wild beasts. Outside the city, a cavalry unit was hastening toward the small town, numbering around 1,000. A military officer approached the cart. In front of us lies a small town, he informed. Let us enter to rest, Li Tai replied. Inside the cart, the plump Li Tai sat upright, gazing at a piece of calligraphy. After much hardship, he had left Chang'an, having been placed under soft house arrest by Li Ji. Li Tai was not one to be easily subdued. He had outshined both Li Shimin and Li Ji. He had no purse at his waist. Humph. You think you can bully my brother? I will write to father, demanding he take you away, a veiled woman interjected, her tone indignant. With clear, lively eyes and wearing a chest-length robe, she was already showing signs of maturity. In her hand, she held a small brush, continuously practicing her calligraphy. Li Tai dared not offend this little tyrant, for she was his secret weapon. As long as she remains with Li Tai, there will come a day when she can turn her fortunes around. Don't cause a fuss. In front of others, you are forbidden to write or speak of your past. I will eventually bring you back, Li Tai said with a grave expression. The woman set down her brush, crumpled the paper into a ball, and threw it at Li Tai's face. His countenance darkened as he restrained his anger. The woman laughed, finding delight in teasing Li Tai's round face. Brother, how do you manage it? She inquired. Li Tai did not respond but instead leaned out of the car window, gazing outside. After a long silence, he retrieved a mask from beneath the documents. If you wish to resemble someone, wear their mask from a young age, and in a few years, you will bear a resemblance, Li Tai explained. The woman toyed with the mask, placing it on Li Tai's face, her expression one of fascination. Brother-in-law, she murmured softly. Remove it, Li Tai commanded angrily. Reluctantly, she took off the mask. Humph, she scoffed, ignoring Li Tai and beginning to rummage through his belongings. Li Tai paid her no mind. She produced numerous paintings, all created by Li Tai. His artistic skills were extraordinary, rendering lifelike portraits with ease. With just a glance, he could replicate a person's likeness. This was also why the ministers held Li Tai in high esteem. His intellect was truly remarkable. Alas, he was born in an ill-fated time. A cavalry unit arrived at the small town, and the general wore a serious expression, for a battle had recently taken place here. A bullet hole was discovered on the ground, a type that had been studied in court. The Marine Corps possessed such weaponry. A military officer approached the carriage to report. Your Highness, there may be Marines here. Li Tai remained silent. He was certain that the Marine Corps would not stray far from Hazenwan. and there was no way Ching Chumo would allow such an affair to transpire. After a lengthy pause, Li Tai smiled and turned to the woman. If I help you find your brother-in-law, how will you repay me? He inquired. The woman's expression brightened, her eyes twinkling. I will help you, right? She offered. Haha. It's a deal. Let us enter the city. Li Tai laughed heartily, his spirits lifted. He retrieved a long gun from behind him. The woman leaned in to take a closer look. Isn't this brother-in-law's? She asked. Li Tai pulled back the bolt. Oh. Crafting a tiger's skin is far easier than forging its bones. I ultimately cannot create bullets, he sighed. The woman pouted. Brother, you are nothing but a fraud. You forge characters, paintings, weapons, and even people. It is undeniable. No wonder you have been imprisoned. Those aristocrats dare not offend you. Your methods are indeed formidable. Previously, she had been quite fond of her brother. He bullied their father and herself, but now her sentiments had shifted. What brother does not tease his sister? It is to be understood. Brother, you wouldn't create a counterfeit of me, would you? She asked, shifting her position to distance herself from Li Tai. He shot her a glare. I have already done so. A mere facade. If you do not write, you shall not be exposed. As the procession entered the city, the county magistrate hastily came to greet them. Upon seeing Li Tai, the magistrate nearly fainted. I pay my respects to the Prince of Wei, he bowed. Beads of sweat on his forehead. This was the legendary creator of the kill the son, passed the brother doctrine. Before Li Tai could speak, the woman held up a painting for the magistrate to see. Have you seen this? She asked. The magistrate looked up at the painting, trembling all over. A great hero. Chapter 283. The Great Tiger and the Great Mouse. The magistrate's reaction spoke volumes. Before he could utter a word, Li Tai raised his hand to interrupt. Enough. I must return to the capital, he declared. This was not the time to meet Ching Chumo. Li Ji had not yet exerted enough pressure on Ching Chumo. If Ching Chumo did not rebel, he would have no opportunity. Li Tai took the woman's hand, leading her away. She struggled to break free, but Li Tai held on tightly. They returned to the carriage. Brother, what are you doing? She complained. Aren't you delaying your search for him? If Li Ji stands against your brother-in-law, whom will you assist? Li Tai posed the question. The woman fell silent, staring at her toes. Li Tai understood her meaning. This would not do. She must assist Ching Chumo for his plan to succeed. If she sided with Li Ji, all of Li Tai's schemes would be in vain. If you cannot help your brother-in-law, you shall not see him. You understand what I mean. You have seen Li Ji's true nature over these past 2 years. Haven't you? Li Tai continued. The woman nodded, yet she still could not make a decision. This was a dilemma she could not resolve. Your brother-in-law is right here. You may go and see him now, but you must think carefully about how to face him, Li Tai advised. Get down and make your own decision. The woman disembarked as Li Tai departed. He would return to Chang'an to continue his imprisonment. She watched the retreating cavalry, wiping away her tears. Li Tai left her a package. She picked it up and opened it. Inside was a mask, some money, and a commoner's set of clothing. Looking around, she sought a corner to change. Her devilish figure could only be seen by heaven and earth. Among the clothes was a small pouch. The woman felt a surge of joy. Her second brother, though tough in words, was soft-hearted. This item had been taken from her by him, yet he unexpectedly returned it. No, this pouch belonged to her second brother. Her heart swelled with sweetness. They had already known what was inside. Her second brother was concerned for her. A smile graced her lips, enchanting enough to dim the brilliance of all else. Li Tai had not anticipated that among the many princesses, she would be the most beautiful. But alas, she was his sister. After changing her clothes, she donned a soft mask, altering her appearance. She added a veil and turned about, satisfied with her transformation. With delicate hands behind her, she strode gracefully into the city. Inside Li Tai's carriage, he pinned a memorial to inform Li Ji of the Goguryeo invasion, mentioning that someone resembling Ching Chumo had been spotted at the borders. 3 days later, at a tofu pudding stall, a tall woman wearing a veil sat on a stool. Sister, I want to eat tofu pudding. We are neighbors. I have bought the shop next door, so you must take care of me from now on, she said. The young widow wiped her hands with an apron and gently placed a bowl of tofu pudding on the table. The young widow replied softly. The woman blinked. Having observed closely over the past 3 days, although the young widow and Ching Chumo shared a room, they did not engage in intimacy. At night, she would lean her ear against the wall to eavesdrop, but there was no sound. She was certain that if her brother-in-law were to engage with her, there would definitely be noise, and it would be quite loud. She recalled the time she had eavesdropped on her brother-in-law and her sister. The thought of those sounds made her weak in the knees. Ching Chumo returned from hunting with a tiger and a bear. The woman was captivated by the sight of the tiger, pointing at it in shock, unable to utter a word, nearly on the verge of tears. The young widow quickly sat beside her to offer comfort. The woman clung tightly to the young widow, burying her small head in the widow's hair. In a state of distress, the young woman cried out, "Oh dear, that monstrous creature is going to devour me." Her fear was palpable as she described the creature. A head nearly the size of a tabletop, capable of swallowing her whole. Overwhelmed by terror, she felt an inexplicable familiarity with Ching Chumo, despite never having met him before. This exquisite figure before her was undeniably a paragon of beauty in the Tang dynasty. The woman, trembling with fright, sought refuge in the embrace of a petite widow, who gently reassured her. The two made their way to the woman's shop, where the widow, awestruck by the opulence surrounding her, marveled at the pure white animal skin carpet and intricately carved furniture adorned with soft, pink bedding. The widow hesitated to sit on such a splendid bed, but the woman insisted, grateful for her presence, as she feared the ferocious beasts that Cheng Chimo owned. Would you stay with me tonight? I am frightened, the woman implored. Her voice a tender plea. The widow nodded softly, understanding the need for comfort. As they shared tea, the woman expressed her gratitude by offering her an array of garments. Despite initial reluctance, the widow succumbed to the woman's charm, and they began to try on the clothes together. Suddenly, both women gasped in unison, startled by a large rat scuttling in the corner, prompting them to leap onto the bed, trembling under the covers. After a moment of hesitation, they discovered the rat had vanished and hurriedly made their way to the widow's home. However, upon entering, they found themselves face to face with a massive tiger, freezing in fear. Cheng Chimo emerged just in time to see the woman's distress. Help me please, she sobbed. He guided her backward, allowing her to lower her feet. And she rushed into his arms, exclaiming about the tiger and the rat. Confused, he listened as a massive stone suddenly plummeted from the sky, creating a crater in the street. Quickly, we must flee. The Goguryeo army approaches, shouted a panicked citizen. Cheng Chimo ascended the city walls, noting the increased number of Goguryeo soldiers and a siege engine among them. Despite the daunting presence of the enemy, he remained unfazed, commanding the local militia to assemble. How many do we have? He inquired. The county magistrate grimaced, revealing that only 30 men were available, their combat skills questionable. Disregarding the odds, Cheng Chimo accepted 50 cattle from the townsfolk, unleashing them towards the enemy. The tiger, in a display of ferocity, rallied the cattle, sending them charging towards the Goguryeo soldiers, resulting in chaos and destruction. As the dust settled, Cheng Chimo returned to his shop, where the woman was still in tears, lamenting the terrifying tiger and rat. The widow comforted her, assuring her that once the master returned, he would handle the situation. Inspired by a newfound resolve, the woman declared, "Let us catch the rat." Her excitement was infectious as she pulled the widow to her feet, ready to confront her fears. Just then, Cheng Chimo entered, intrigued by their spirited conversation. The woman approached him eagerly, her eyes shining with determination. "We are going to catch the rat," she announced, while the widow nodded in agreement, relieved to have his support. Cheng Chimo, undeterred by the prospect of facing a mere rat, followed the woman into her room, where her excitement was palpable as she pointed towards the corner. "It was there, merely to frighten us," the woman's voice exclaimed with excitement, as if seeking revenge by reporting to a guardian after being bullied. Cheng Chimo glanced towards the corner, where the shadow of a mouse lurked. The woman picked up a pastry, hesitating to place it in the corner, ultimately setting it in the palm of Cheng Chimo's hand. He took the pastry to set it down, but she tugged at his clothing, peering at him with a tilted head. After placing the pastry down, he brushed his hands together, shaking off the remnants. Turning around, the woman followed suit. Suddenly, she gasped in surprise, spinning around to stand in the corner, a flash leaping onto Cheng Chimo's back, her arms tightly encircling his neck. "Run! There's a giant mouse here," she cried. Cheng Chimo mused to himself that it seemed the mouse was indeed the woman's nemesis. He carried her to the bedside, where she descended from his back, pulling him to sit beside her, her arms wrapping around his as she nervously fixed her gaze on the corner. "Who are you?" Cheng Chimo inquired, tilting his head to scrutinize her. Due to her earlier tears, her mask had begun to slip, the edges lifting. "Guess," she replied, making a face at him, unafraid of being recognized. He could not identify her. He had seen her in childhood but had not encountered her in adulthood. Cheng Chimo resisted the urge to lift her mask. With a playful glint in her eye, she stood and paced in front of him, her small hands clasped behind her back. "Can you guess? There's a reward if you do," she teased, showcasing her curvaceous figure. Cheng Chimo thought to himself that her physique was unparalleled, pondering who she might be. He was certain he had never met her. With a mischievous wink, she lightly rested her left hand on his shoulder, her waist swaying gracefully. She was evidently confident in her appearance. "A mouse," Cheng Chimo answered. "Ah," she exclaimed, leaping onto him, her arms once again tightly encircling his neck. "Don't come near," she cried. After a while, she realized she had been tricked and huffily descended from him, leaving a lingering scent on his clothes. "You trickster," she pouted, glancing nervously at the corner before hastily turning away. Cheng Chimo felt a surge of amusement and sought to uncover her identity. "Who are you really?" he pressed. The woman, visibly displeased, did not respond, instead watching the corner anxiously. Meanwhile, the entire Tang dynasty was in an uproar over their mouse-catching antics. In Yuzhou, Han Tu led a pure black warhorse out of the city gates, flanked by 8 ruffians, still awaiting their lord. In Hanoi, 300 riders gathered at the Yalu River. The Special Forces captain declared, "No unnecessary words," as they charged straight for Liaodong. In Gansu, at a lakeside villa, Empress Changsuan's small face tightened. "Humph. That vile man has nowhere to hide now," she declared. Li Lizzie quickly grasped Empress Changsuan's arm. Changsun playfully tapped her forehead. "I dare not provoke him. I command Wang Xuanzi to lead the Jinbei army of Fufeng County to retrieve him," she asserted. Cheng Chimo's location had been revealed, and it was imperative that no ill-intentioned individuals find him first. In Chang'an, Li Ji's expression darkened. Li Tai dashed in and out, an unexpected turn of events. What troubled him most was Cheng Chimo's reemergence. It seems slander is of no consequence. He truly is a formidable opponent, Li Ji remarked, glancing at Wu Meinyang, who had now become the empress of the Tang dynasty, adorned in her phoenix robe. Your Majesty, please remain calm. Now that Cheng Chumo has surfaced, our task is to placate the situation, Wu Meinyang advised, feeling relieved that her brother-in-law was safe. Yet, her expression darkened at the thought of CZ. As she retrieved a pouch, an empty one that belonged to him, CZ, who had been raised by her, was more than a sister. They shared an unbreakable bond. Li Ji said nothing and left the grand hall. Wu Meinyang watched his retreating figure and then glanced at the pouch. The physician had declared that CZ had not succumbed to the plague, but to a slow-acting poison. Wu Meinyang discovered in the palace records of poison that was colorless and tasteless, seemingly harmless until one drank tea, which would lead to certain death. The manner of death mirrored that of Du Ruhui, who had died in the 4th year of the Jingguan era, publicly declared as having succumbed to illness. Was Li Ji responsible? Wu Meinyang furrowed her brow. If not him, then who? What was the motive behind such actions? In Chapter 285, Li Tai's transformation. Wu Meinyang thought of him, a smirk forming on her lips. Li Tai could deceive the world, but not Wu Meinyang. After all, it was CZ who had assisted him in drafting the imperial edict, essentially paving the way for him to become the crown prince. In all of the Tang dynasty, the one most unwilling to see harm come to CZ was Li Tai. As long as she lived, he had hope. Yet, he was also the one who most wished for her disappearance. With her alive, Li Ji would never be at ease. What a cunning strategy. Summon the king of Wei to see me, Wu Meinyang commanded, and a palace maid was dispatched to convey the message to Li Tai. Upon arriving at the Hall of Governance, Li Tai bowed upon seeing Wu Meinyang. Greetings, Your Majesty, he said. Your methods are quite adept. Where is CZ? Wu Meinyang inquired, gazing steadily at him, her hands clenched within her sleeves, whitening from the pressure. She was anxious to hear news of CZ's survival. I do not know, Li Tai replied, maintaining his composure, having anticipated such a scenario. Wu Meinyang did not press further, dismissing him with a wave. The shift in power was palpable. Once, she had not dared to utter a word in his presence, but now, she was the empress. Li Tai returned to his royal residence, finding himself in the courtyard, roasting lamb while removing his mask and tossing it aside. Are you not going to change up your flavor today? He asked, approaching the unfulfilled figure beside him and picking up the discarded mask, dusting it off. This mask could make you resemble your elder brother, Cheng Chumo, who has been so terribly mistreated. Do you not wish to help him seek vengeance? Li Tai said, his gaze fixed on the whole lamb roasting over the fire. The unfulfilled figure glared in indignation, eyes wide, refusing to answer Li Tai, rising instead to practice her dance. The concubine had once claimed that Cheng Chumo possessed remarkable martial skills. If she wished to assist him, she had to train diligently. After Cheng Chumo's disappearance, all personnel from Gansu had been withdrawn, ceasing their involvement in the governance of Fufeng County. Li Tai sought out Princess Gaoyang, revealing her lineage to her. Upon learning the truth, she wept for 3 days, realizing that she was not the child of Li Shimin, but that her mother was Zheng Guanyin. Empress Changsun is referred to as Guanyin's maid, while Li Jianqing's crown princess is named Zheng Guanyin. The mere mention of these names suggests a rivalry between the two individuals. Indeed, Li Jianqing and Li Shimin competed fiercely for supremacy in every aspect. Li Shimin's consort is named Guanyin's maid, while his crown princess bears the name Guanyin. Following Li Jianqing's demise, Li Shimin brought Zheng Guanyin into his harem and renamed her Zheng Huan. The mother of Princess Gaoyang is none other than Zheng Huan, who remains within the palace to this day. Due to her melancholic countenance, Li Ji has not taken a liking to her. Otherwise, she would have been secured long ago. Li Tai made a promise to Princess Gaoyang that he would release her mother as soon as he gains power. Princess Gaoyang agreed to collaborate with Li Tai, not out of a desire for revenge against her father, Li Jianqing, but rather to rescue her mother and live a peaceful life. Historically, the extermination of the Fang clan occurred due to this matter. Upon discovering her origins, Princess Gaoyang yearned to bring her mother out. But she holds no influence with Li Ji. Who would believe in Fang Yai's rebellion? Only fools would. His character lacks cunning. Would he harbor such thoughts? Would Princess Gaoyang rebel? That would be foolish of her. What grounds would she have for such an uprising? She is not the mastermind, Li Tai is. As for why Li Ji has not acted against Li Tai, we shall discuss that later. I am famished. I shall visit Gaoyang, said the one known as not satisfied. His relationship with Gaoyang is quite amicable. She has been responsible for providing him with sustenance over the years. Li Tai did not intervene. Go to the inner treasury and procure some rare items. Do not return empty-handed, Li Tai instructed. Not satisfied felt grateful. He is not foolish and understands that Li Tai is utilizing him. As long as it aids in avenging his elder brother, he is willing to be used. Very well, he replied, tearing off a leg of lamb and handing it to Li Tai. Li Tai accepted it and began to eat without the slightest hint of disdain. The person I admire most is your elder brother, my brother-in-law, Cheng Chumo, Li Tai remarked, tearing off a piece of meat and offering the remaining leg to not satisfied, who caught it with one hand and took a hearty bite. Why? He mumbled, his voice unclear. Because your elder brother does not have die-hard followers. His subordinates lead their own lives, prioritizing their own loyalty before his. His followers are formidable. They would do anything to protect your brother, Li Tai explained. Initially, Li Tai found it perplexing why Cheng Chumo's companions were so loyal. After careful observation, he understood. Their loyalty is intertwined with their way of life. If Cheng Chumo were to fall, they would not fare well either. The concept of dual loyalty, to both loyalty and filial piety, does not apply here. After all, who would not wish to follow someone like Cheng Chumo? It is not that he demands their allegiance. Rather, they genuinely desire to be by his side. Li Tai aspired to emulate Cheng Chumo, forsaking his own ruthlessness. If your elder brother were a prince, he would undoubtedly be an emperor, he added. My brother is not a prince, yet he is capable of becoming an emperor, Not Satisfied retorted. Li Tai laughed heartily, stuffing his mouth with meat. He wiped his hands on Not Satisfied's clothing and patted him on the shoulder. Enraged, Not Satisfied dropped the leg of lamb, stood up, and embraced Li Tai's rotund form. Rubbing his face against Li Tai's, Li Tai was not annoyed. As Not Satisfied rubbed against him, he reciprocated. Eventually, the two lay on the ground, laughing heartily. Master, I have just received news that the special forces have departed from Hanoi, heading to Fufeng and the northern army towards Liaodong, a steward reported. Li Tai turned to Not Satisfied. Would you like to go? Not Satisfied shook his head. He intended to eliminate those who bullied his elder brother. Rising, he declared, I will go to Fufeng County to see Gao Yang. Li Tai gestured for the steward to approach. Prepare more gifts. Today, the royal residence will improve its meals. Ensure the household staff dines well. Do not be concerned about expenses, Li Tai instructed. The steward complied, bowing deeply before departing. Li Tai observed, silently admiring Cheng Chumo. What would the outcome have been if I had learned from you sooner? He mused, regretting his past decisions. Had he not opposed Cheng Chumo and instead stayed by his side to learn, what might have transpired? A mentor is indeed crucial. In the palace, Your Majesty. The Empress has just met with Wang Wei, a eunuch reported. Li Ji frowned, pondering why Mei Nyang would meet with Li Tai. Could this matter be related to Li Tai? He queried. What discussions are taking place at the Wang residence? Li Ji asked. The eunuch answered truthfully, stating that the Wang residence was hosting a grand banquet, with masters and servants gathering together. After hearing this, Li Ji ceased further speculation. Over the past few years, Li Tai has consistently behaved in this manner. It appears he has come to terms with the situation. The northern army has departed from Gansu, Su Jingzong noted. Li Ji's gaze deepened. This is indeed a troublesome situation. The priority now should be to secure the Shu region, once Cheng Chumo returns to Gansu. The Shu region will undoubtedly align with him. Changsun Wuji proposed, let us frame Li Ku with a charge. Indeed, Li Ji agreed. As the situation unfolded, Changsun Wuji and Su Jingzong remained silent, heads bowed. Changsun Wuji hoped Su Jingzong would undertake such a task, but Su Jingzong was not naive. While framing a minister might be feasible with Li Ji's backing, he would not dare to implicate a prince. Li Ji understood their thoughts. Someone must undertake the role of the villain. He looked to Changsun Wuji, saying, I will rely on you, uncle. Changsun Wuji, a man of shifting allegiances, had swayed during the prince's contest for power, and he continues to do so. He still has contingency plans in place. With Empress Changsun's influence, he retains two paths to choose from. Li Ji would not permit such occurrences. Changsun Wuji bowed in acknowledgement, fully aware of his precarious position. He could not bring himself to side with Cheng Chumo, for it was Cheng Chumo who had orchestrated his transformation into a eunuch. The one who most desired Cheng Chumo's downfall was none other than him. Li Ji chuckled softly and strode out of the hall, arriving at the Hall of Governance, which had undergone little change, a testament to the passage of time. Wu Meinyang aspired to emulate Empress Changsun, but had never contemplated altering the Hall of Governance, even to the extent of renaming it. Upon entering the hall, Li Ji succinctly recounted the matter concerning Li Ku to Wu Meinyang, who was busy entertaining a rather unattractive young boy. After hearing Li Ji's account, Wu Meinyang turned to him, asking, Do you comprehend what this entails? It signifies that all the princes will distance themselves from you. She did not wish for Li Ji to turn against Li Ku, who represented the princes. Targeting him would result in Li Ji losing the support of the royal family. Li Ji shook his head, glancing at the child, and reached out to touch the boy's face. I cannot allow Cheng Chumo to seize the Shu region. Wu Meinyang refrained from further persuasion, knowing that Li Ji would come to regret this decision. Indeed, he would, and this would ultimately sow the seeds for Wu Meinyang's ascension as empress. Within the royal family, 3/10 aided Wu Meinyang in her quest for power. Li Ji's methods were indeed mediocre, and his fate was a consequence of his own actions. Historically, even the most inept emperors could not ascend to the throne as empresses, for the imperial clan court would not permit such an occurrence. Despite Empress Dowager Cixi's overwhelming influence during the Qing dynasty, she lacked the authority to declare herself emperor, and the reasoning is simple. She could control the ministers, but not the imperial clan court. The legitimacy of one's claim is paramount. Furthermore, while the imperial clan court may appear devoid of power, it possesses the authority to dismiss. Should Cixi dare to proclaim herself emperor, the court would have grounds to remove her. Cixi was only able to install a child as emperor, ruling behind a curtain. That was the extent of her capabilities. What do you suppose Cheng Chumo will do next? Li Ji inquired. Seek vengeance. Avenge the child, Wu Meinyang replied. At that moment, Cheng Chumo was indulging in tofu and wine, seated across from two beautiful women. A young widow meticulously picked through a half bag of beans, while another woman assisted by collecting the selected beans in a small basin. Once a small handful was gathered, the woman would seize it. The two beasts commenced their performance. The one who excelled would receive a treat. The bear, known for its upright stance, delighted the women with its antics. Each time it performed, the women were filled with joy. The tiger, in earnest, attempted to mimic a dog's bark, eliciting cheers of praise. Bravo! You did splendidly. Here is your reward. The young widow wore a pained expression, aware that these beans could be crafted into cakes for sale, as they were merely the byproducts of soy milk production, defatted soybeans. The bear, crestfallen, sat beside the woman, hoping for a morsel in the future. Cheng Chumo observed, struck by the sight of such an unimpressive beast. The woman, having set aside the basin, approached Cheng Chumo, her small nose sniffing the aroma of wine. Quickly, she covered her nose with her hand, her large eyes shimmering. Wine was her nemesis. Leaning against Cheng Chumo's arm, her body softened. Cheng Chumo remained speechless, pondering the obviousness of her act. Why not take a sip before you do that? He suggested. The woman remained silent, content to lean against him. Suddenly, the sound of war drums echoed from outside the city. The Goguryeo army had crossed the border, making their way toward the small town. This was the first stage of their invasion. You must hide. I fear they may use catapults, Cheng Chumo advised. The woman, sobered by the urgency, joined the young widow in retreating to their quarters, assisting Aunt Song to the woman's shop, which had been dug out to capture large rats. Cheng Chumo ascended the city wall, his expression grave. The small town was besieged, with no escape routes remaining. The townsfolk had ceased fleeing, armed with kitchen knives, prepared to fight. The county magistrate wore a pained expression. He had spent a decade in this town, which had never known peace. Cheng Chumo surveyed the enemy forces, approximately 50,000. The town could not withstand such an assault. Let the people dig tunnels and barricade the gates, he instructed. Uncertain if there was time, the townspeople listened, urged to surrender Cheng Chumo. The enemy below shouted, their intent clear, to eliminate him, whom they deemed their lifelong adversary. Only by vanquishing Cheng Chumo could Goguryeo secure its safety. The county magistrate bowed his head, as did the townsfolk. Cheng Chumo offered a smile. Fear not, focus on surviving. I shall speak with them. The townspeople's eyes brimmed with tears. Was it right to send their hero to face death? No, Goguryeo cannot be trusted, the magistrate asserted. In that moment, he grasped the futility. Even if their champion ventured forth, the Goguryeo army would still lay siege to the town. The townspeople nodded in agreement. Their hero was their hope, and Goguryeo's word was worthless. Over the years, they had repeatedly harassed the border, always masquerading as bandits. The townsfolk recognized those as Goguryeo soldiers. Cheng Chumo placed a reassuring hand on the magistrate's shoulder. Then we shall defend the city together. He bore the weight of every burden. He felt a sense of gratitude for the townspeople's determination. I shall return home to bid farewell, he declared. It was not only Cheng Chumo who sought to say goodbye. All the townspeople needed to return home to their wives. They feared this time they might not return alive. Cheng Chumo returned to the woman's room, where she and the young widow awaited him anxiously. Their relief was palpable upon his return. He approached them, opening his arms to embrace them gently. The two women sensed the gravity of the situation. The young widow bit her lip. You must look after them, Cheng Chumo instructed. Turning to the woman. If I survive, will you reveal your identity to me? He added. I am, the woman began, but was silenced by Cheng Chumo's kiss. Overwhelmed with emotion, she wept. Leave a portion of hope for my return, he urged. The woman nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. After a brief farewell, Cheng Chumo departed. Stepping into the street where townsfolk gradually emerged from their homes. No one spoke, they silently followed him. Upon reaching the city gate, he turned to face them. I, Cheng Chumo, am honored to know you all. I will speak with them, await my return, he proclaimed. The magistrate gaped in astonishment, while the townsfolk gazed at Cheng Chumo. Filled with admiration, the divine general, they murmured, for tales of Cheng Chumo's prowess in Liaodong were legendary. He smiled, opening the city gate, and walked out. Hands clasped behind his back, facing the 50,000 enemy soldiers, aware that his fate was sealed. The commanding general, his old rival, was Yuan Gaesuan. At last, you have fallen into my grasp. Yuan Gaesuan laughed heartily, his heart racing with excitement, yet tinged with worry. He feared he might not be able to capture Cheng Chumo. Despite the small town's lack of an army, he felt uncertain. Cheng Chumo was formidable. As the scene unfolded at the city wall's corner, Han Tu rose, expressionless, leading his horse toward Cheng Chumo. He had awaited Cheng Chumo's command for 3 days without entering the city. Kneeling before him, Han Tu declared, My lord, mount your horse. Cheng Chumo stepped upon his shoulder and mounted. Han Tu rose, guiding the horse to face the Goguryeo army. Countless hot air balloons floated through the sky, and distant banners fluttered. Yuan Gaesuan looked skyward in terror, realizing he was surrounded. On the distant hillside, Wang Xuanzi rode forth on a magnificent steed, approaching the Jinbei army of Fufeng. From afar, he gazed at Cheng Chumo, dismounting to kneel on one knee. We welcome your return, my lord, Wang Xuanzi shouted. The Jinbei army collectively knelt, echoing his call. The sound reverberated, and suddenly, the roar of cannons erupted. 1,000 cannons roared in unison, enveloping the Goguryeo soldiers in a fiery inferno. Wang Xuanzi and his companions remained on their knees, welcoming Cheng Chumo beneath the barrage. Hot air balloons began to drop explosives. while special forces commenced their airborne descent. Upon landing, they shielded Cheng Chumo, confronting the flames before them. The Fufeng Jinbei army encircled the area, with 100,000 cavalry from Liaodong dismounting to kneel in reverence, welcoming the divine general's return. The sound of their collective roar echoed through the air. In the distance, Li Ji, the grand commander of Liaodong, wore a bitter smile. The orders given to him by Li Ji were to find an opportunity to eliminate Cheng Chumo. Yet the present circumstances offered no such chance. On the contrary, it was Cheng Chumo who now had the opportunity to vanquish him. In a small town, the county magistrate trembled atop the city wall, his face flushed with excitement. A woman rushed up to the battlements, her heart heavy with grief for her fallen brother-in-law. Gazing blankly at the sea of flames, the once arrogant Goguryeo soldiers now scurried about like frightened mice. The woman dashed down the wall to stand beside Cheng Chumo, her eyes filled with anticipation as she wished to mount a horse. Cheng Chumo extended his hand, and she placed hers upon his. Feeling herself lift effortlessly onto the horse's back, nestled comfortably in his embrace. With one hand wielding a tang saber and the other around her waist, Cheng Chumo raised his weapon high, shouting, "Kill!" Wang Xuanzi, seeing Cheng Chumo's motion, mounted his horse with fervor. The Fufeng Jinbei army sprang to life. Charging forth at Wang Xuanzi's command, tears streamed down the county magistrate's face. With such a general in the Tang, who would dare to oppress the people of the empire or invade their borders? The years of frustration he had endured vanished in an instant. He longed to shout, "Is there anyone else?" From afar, he witnessed Yuan Gaisuen's head severed by Cheng Chumo's blade, bringing him a sense of satisfaction. He slapped the city wall, wincing in pain, then rubbed his hands together, gazing at the battlefield with a foolish grin. He could now indulge a little without fear of paying taxes to two nations. A small amount of corruption would be overlooked by the populace. As the battle concluded, Cheng Chumo rode back to the city, with Han Tu leading his horse and the special forces following behind in a grand procession. The townsfolk cheered enthusiastically. The woman waved her hands, reveling in the spectacle. Cheng Chumo remained speechless, recognizing her exuberance. Upon returning to the shop, the young widow did not greet him, hiding within her room, weeping inconsolably. Unlike the other woman, she did not ascend the city wall, not from a lack of desire to accompany Cheng Chumo, but because she had to care for old Song, who could not be without her. Cheng Chumo, puzzled by her absence, dismounted and reached for the woman, who, understanding the situation, wrapped her arms around his neck, urging him to lower his head. As he did, she whispered in his ear, revealing the reason for the widow's absence. Cheng Chumo finally comprehended her dilemma. The widow was not at fault. Filial piety comes first among virtues. If she abandoned old Song, she would carry the burden of guilt for a lifetime. Cheng Chumo opened the shop door, but the woman did not follow, choosing instead to play with the two pets. The widow hurriedly wiped her tears upon seeing Cheng Chumo enter. Unsure how to express herself, she sat beside him. "I apologize for concealing my identity from you. What are your thoughts now that you know I am Cheng Chumo?" he inquired. The widow was momentarily taken aback. What could she say? All she knew was that Cheng Chumo was a divine general of the Tang, capable of great feats, while the rest was beyond her understanding as an ordinary citizen. Wang Xuanzi sought an audience outside the shop. Cheng Chumo stood, gently patting the widow's head before stepping outside. There, Wang Xuanzi knelt on one knee, greeting him with respect. "Your Majesty," he stated. Cheng Chumo assisted him to his feet, saying, "No need for such formalities." Wang Xuanzi rose, fully aware that Cheng Chumo's words held weight. As etiquette was intertwined with power, to overstep was to overreach, and he dared not do so. The two took their seats and engaged in casual conversation, with Wang Xuanzi seeking guidance on the next course of action. "Let us extinguish Goguryeo. I wish to see it no more," Cheng Chumo declared. Wang Xuanzi complied, standing to depart, knowing that the rest was in his capable hands. For 3 consecutive days, Cheng Chumo received numerous dignitaries, a plethora of visitors. Seated in a chair, he felt a sense of disillusionment, refusing to meet anyone. "Han Tu, you should," he instructed. "The royal physician has informed me that Princess Jinyang was poisoned," Han Tu replied. Cheng Chumo stood still, grappling with the revelation while the woman playing with the tiger paused, pouting and casting a furtive glare at Han Tuesday. Cheng Chumo's eyes reddened. He wished to evade this topic, yet he knew he must confront it. The woman rose, removing her mask to reveal a breathtaking visage. Approaching Cheng Chumo, she playfully touched his nose. "Brother-in-law," she said. Cheng Chumo stared at her, disbelief washing over him as the blood drained from his face. She felt a sense of triumph, knowing her significance in Cheng Chumo's heart. "Who are you?" Cheng Chumo asked, struggling to accept the reality. Having grown accustomed to facades, he found it hard to believe he was face to face with the genuine Cheng Chumo. What was real? The girl, no longer feigning displeasure, cupped his face with both hands. "Brother-in-law, you're being a bully." "Humph," she teased. Cheng Chumo shivered with surprise. "Is that you, Zizi?" he exclaimed, still in disbelief. "I thought you had perished." Zizi frowned. "Brother-in-law, how old do you think I am? You still call me Zizi?" She pouted. "You shouldn't use someone's childhood name. My name is Li Mingda," she added, feeling a bit shy as she spoke her name, looking down and dragging her shoe across the ground. The name sounded anything but feminine. Yet, the name had been chosen by Li Shimin before her birth, initially believing her to be a boy, only to discover she was a girl. Chapter 288. A small surprise once Cheng Chumo comprehended the situation, he circled around Zizi, marveling at how a girl could change so dramatically. I never expected, truly never expected, he exclaimed, astonished by her beauty. Zizi had been unremarkable as a child, but now, she had blossomed into a striking young woman. As Cheng Chumo twirled, she followed suit, exuding confidence in her physique. After a long while, the two individuals felt a bit dizzy. Zizi sat opposite Cheng Chumo, urging him to take a look. Brother-in-law, how about we go to Gansu? Zizi shyly suggested. Cheng Chumo remained speechless, clearly unconvinced by her pretense of shyness in his presence. Dinner is ready, announced the widow as she entered with the meal. Zizi stood up to assist. After they arranged the dishes, they all began to eat. In a few days, we will return to Gansu, Cheng Chumo stated. Zizi clapped her hands in delight, while the widow lowered her head, remaining silent. That night, the widow sat alone outside, gazing at the night sky in a daze. Zizi approached and sat beside her. Sister, do you have something on your mind? She inquired. I will not return with you. The widow replied, unable to resolve her inner turmoil. Zizi wrapped her arms around the widow, resting her head gently on her shoulder. What if I stay here and sell tofu pudding with you? Zizi suggested. The widow shook her head. Zizi, with an air of nobility, seemed an unlikely companion for such a humble trade. Simplicity is the essence of life. I still prefer my current existence, she affirmed. Dear sister, please return with Chumo. Just visit me when you have time, the widow urged. In her heart, Cheng Chumo was merely a transient figure in her life, not her ideal partner. Zizi ceased her persuasion, understanding that such matters were best left for the brother-in-law to navigate himself, lest her good intentions lead to unfavorable outcomes. If they truly harbored feelings for one another, she believed the widow would surely accompany Cheng Chumo to Gansu. At dawn, the widow rose early to prepare an elaborate meal. The hero is ready to eat, she declared, her voice filled with admiration. Cheng Chumo was momentarily taken aback, realizing something significant. Zizi, having no appetite, took a bun outside to play with the large tiger, allowing the two some space. Cheng Chumo sat down, and the widow placed the chopsticks and bowl before him. Hero, after this meal, you should return, she said softly, her head bowed. Old Song let out a sigh, leaning on his cane as he departed. Only Cheng Chumo and the widow remained at the table. Do you not wish to go? Cheng Chumo asked, looking at her. The widow gently nodded. Can you tell me why? He inquired again. We are not from the same world, she replied casually, her tone reminiscent of their first meeting. It felt as though a vast distance lay between them. Cheng Chumo fell silent, picking up his chopsticks to eat. A forced relationship bears no sweetness. Gansu is not a cage. It is unnecessary to confine those Cheng Chumo cherishes there. They deserve their own lives. He respected the widow and equally honored the other women in Gansu. They were human beings, not caged birds. After the meal, the widow helped Cheng Chumo adjust his attire one last time, retrieving a small floral bag. Here are some dried tofu and cakes for you to eat on your journey, she said, hanging the package on his large hand. Her tiny hand gripped his firmly for a moment before she slowly withdrew, suppressing her tears. Turning away to hide her reddened eyes, she said, It is getting late. You should set off, hero. Cheng Chumo turned to leave, pausing at the door to glance back at her. Come with me, he urged. The widow trembled, biting her lip until it bled. No, she replied, the words seemingly draining her of all strength, robbing her of her former resolve. Cheng Chumo gently closed the door behind him. The widow collapsed to the ground, tears streaming down her face like a flood breaking its banks. She wept silently, longing to follow Cheng Chumo, yet knowing she could not. Old Song's health was failing, and she would be scorned in a wealthy household. The people around Cheng Chumo were either princesses or noble consorts. How could a mere tofu vendor mingle with such circles? Enduring hardship was one thing, but what about Old Song being mistreated? Hearing the sound of hooves fade into the distance, the widow cried out in anguish. For the first time, she had fallen for someone, yet that person was like a cloud on the horizon, visible yet unattainable. How long she cried, she did not know. Eventually, she fell asleep at the edge of her bed. That night, she slept the entire day, utterly exhausted. Struggling to rise, she suddenly remembered she had not prepared a meal for Old Song. Mother? Mother? She called, but received no response. Alarmed, the widow searched for her, but to no avail. Panic set in. Where could her mother have gone? Given her frail health, where could she possibly be? The widow opened the door, convinced her mother must be in the adjacent shop. Yes, she was sure of it. Just as she stepped outside, she was taken aback by the sight of a luxurious carriage parked at the entrance. Cheng Chumo was mounted on a fine steed before the carriage, flanked by elite soldiers. As the carriage curtain lifted, she spotted Old Song and Zizi inside. You lazy girl, how can you sleep so long? Hurry up and get in. We are going to Gansu, Old Song exclaimed. Tears streamed down the widow's face. Mother, you two are bullying me, she cried, her voice filled with surprise. Get in quickly, or I shall pinch you, Old Song warned playfully. The widow instinctively covered her backside, recalling childhood traumas, and shyly made her way toward the carriage. As she passed Cheng Chumo's warhorse, she gasped, suddenly lifted and securely placed on the saddle. Go, Cheng Chumo called out. The widow silently echoed one word in her heart, Mary. Cheng Chumo departed from Liaodong, knowing that with Wang Xuanzi by his side, he had no need for concern. Dealing with the Goguryeo army was well within his capabilities. Throughout the journey, The widow rode alongside Ching Chumo on a single horse. Initially, Zizi was quite generous. But after a month, she grew impatient. Sister, you certainly know how to enjoy yourself. It has been a month, and you have yet to let me ride with you. Is it just you who gets to have all the fun? Zizi teased with a smirk. The widow's face flushed crimson. With Ching Chumo's assistance, she dismounted and grabbed Zizi's hand to apologize. Do not be angry, sister. I simply forgot, the widow explained. Zizi saw through her intentions instantly. Forgot? You just haven't had enough of it. What could you possibly forget after a month? I don't believe you. You did it on purpose, Zizi retorted. Ching Chumo watched the lively exchange from his mount, amused. Zizi shot him a glare. After all, she had been trained by Wu Meinyang, so how could she not be fierce? Eventually, Zizi and the widow reached an agreement. On the odd days, Ching Chumo would ride with the widow. In the year of the dragon and the horse, Ching Chumo returned with the child, CZ. The troop arrived in Hanoi, where the special forces had been stationed for the past 2 years. Ching Chumo assigned them the task of preventing Li Ku from returning to the capital. After their departure, Emperor Li Ji's decree arrived in Sichuan, compelling Li Ku to set forth for the capital, unexpectedly encountering Ching Chumo along the way. Upon recognizing his brother-in-law, Li Ku dismounted and respectfully saluted. CZ, nestled in Ching Chumo's arms, displayed an air of arrogance. Who are you? Step aside quickly. We are on a mission to capture the giant panda, she declared, teasing Li Ku, who could only manage a bitter smile, lacking the spirit for frivolity. Brother-in-law, save me. Li Ku implored. Ching Chumo dismounted and approached Li Ku, scrutinizing his haggard face and swollen eyes. I require control over Shu, he stated resolutely. For the region must not fall under the court's dominion. Li Ku, gazing at Ching Chumo, could only smile ruefully. Did he truly possess any options? Despite having held sway over Shu for years, rebellion was a perilous thought. The land felt like a cage, easy to enter, yet difficult to escape. If Zhuge Liang had failed multiple northern campaigns, how could he, Li Ku, succeed? Ching Chumo placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You shall still govern Shu. I understand your concerns for your mother, who remains in Chang'an. I will accompany you to bring her out, he assured. Determined to resolve the situation with Shu once and for all, Ching Chumo had no intention of masquerading any longer. He sought a complete and prosperous Tang dynasty. Preferring to achieve it without bloodshed, Li Ku felt a surge of gratitude. His mother was indeed his last concern. Ching Chumo decided to travel to Chang'an, while CZ expressed a desire to venture to Gansu in search of Empress Changsun. Old Song accompanied CZ and the 8 members of the Tianxia Society to Gansu, while the widow followed Ching Chumo to Chang'an, albeit reluctantly. Old Song chastised her sternly. Why would you accompany me to Gansu? Join Ching Chumo in Chang'an to broaden your horizons, he suggested, a smile gracing his face. The widow, blushing, fell silent, still apprehensive of Old Song. Frustrated, he pinched her sharply, prompting her to grimace in pain, on the verge of tears. Old Song, however, remained unconvinced she would truly cry. It seemed more of a performance. The widow had never ventured far from Old Song, not due to a lack of desire to explore the world, but rather from fear. Another tear. And I shall pinch you again, Old Song warned. The widow, undeterred, continued to feign tears. Old Song's irritation grew, and he extended his hands toward her. Mistaking his intentions for an embrace, she joyfully leaped into his arms, but he seized the opportunity to discipline her, delivering a firm smack to her rear. The widow cried out, genuinely this time, as Old Song's hand had been rather heavy. This girl needs discipline. What good is it to stay with Ching Chumo? Learning nothing while guarding herself? He pondered, growing more incensed with each thought and delivering further swats. Half an hour later, the widow, rubbing her sore backside, dismounted the carriage. Her expression one of indignation. Ching Chumo laughed heartily as the troop set off, heading straight for Chang'an. Li Ku, now no longer haggard, rode proudly behind Ching Chumo. Ching Chumo held the widow close as they rode, her oversized clothing being her only outfit, as she lacked a change for their travels. She donned Ching Chumo's attire, which required no fastening, merely slipping it on. Sitting astride the horse, she leaned against him, clutching the neckline tightly. Old Song had instructed her to conceal the scar on her left chest from Ching Chumo, at least for the time being. My clothes will dry by tomorrow, the widow remarked. Ching Chumo felt a surge of joy. Indeed, she looked rather charming in his garments, which were ample and convenient for movement. Thus, they journeyed sweetly to Fufeng County. Upon returning to the villa, they found it deserted, devoid of life. Ching Chumo opened the door to find not a speck of dust within, suggesting it was regularly maintained. He decided to linger there for a few days. Li Ku, unwilling to depart, feared that returning to Chang'an would lead to his demise. Ching Chumo paid him no mind and independently ventured to the county office in Fufeng, summoning the heads of the 7 families. Quickly attend to my orders, he commanded, and soon, 7 middle-aged men gathered in the hall. Ching Chumo took his seat at the head of the table, sipping tea with one hand while perusing the accounts with the other. Not bad, he remarked. Inform your master that from today forth, I reclaim Fufeng County. Having reviewed the records, he noted no issues with income. However, a significant problem loomed. These individuals were secretly trading shares. A man named Mu Zishui was covertly transferring the county's shares. Ching Chumo doubted the 7 great families were unaware of this. He knew who Mu Zishui was. Li Ji, who had been coveting Fufeng County for some time, attempting to covertly control it in Cheng Chimo's absence, aided by the 7 families for mutual benefit. Cheng Chimo wished to avoid playing their games of cunning. He aimed for a direct approach, reclaiming ownership of Fufeng County. As the Prince of Fufeng, his word was law. The 7 men bowed their heads, too intimidated to oppose him. Cheng Chimo stood and left the hall, wandering through the office when a young woman approached. She was Xiao Kong, the granddaughter of Kong Yingda. With Kong Yingda having passed many years ago, Xiao Kong was finally liberated from any constraints. Upon seeing Cheng Chimo, she bowed respectfully. After so many years, the master's presence remains as impressive as ever, she noted. Cheng Chimo regarded her closely. You have endured much over the years. He replied with a smile as they strolled towards the back garden together. Why do you not utilize public opinion to protect yourself? Why suffer slander from others? She inquired. The past 2 years had seen Cheng Chimo's reputation tarnished significantly. Xiao Kong, feeling indignant, questioned why anyone would dare to defame their master, whose contributions had been monumental. His efforts had ensured that the Tang dynasty enjoyed sweet potatoes and affordable silk. Does the master not resist such attacks? Cheng Chimo, of course, wished to resist. His return to Chang'an was to engage Li Ji in earnest discussion. If the dialogue went well, the status quo would be maintained. If not, he would have to make difficult choices. Do not blame me for being heartless. I care not for appearances. I would rather shatter the landscape than endure such indignity. He declared, I am not well versed in this matter. Xiao Kong paused, and Cheng Chimo halted to look at her. What do you propose? He asked, with a serious expression. She nodded, revealing she indeed had a plan. I wish to establish the Sanfu Early News, she said. The Sanfu Early News would function as a newspaper. Cheng Chimo acknowledged her proposal with a nod. Xiao Kong felt a surge of excitement. She had previously attempted to start such a publication, and the experience had been eye-opening. However, how could she accurately report the truth when she was unable to confront the powerful elite? The report on the county magistrate's corruption was published, and the following day, her newspaper was shut down. Xiao Kong understood that to speak the truth, one must possess the strength to do so. Without power, silence is the only option. Her newspaper faced numerous obstacles, which led her to remember that she had a powerful protector, a man in the Tang dynasty whom no one dared to provoke. Cheng Chimo readily agreed. The Tang dynasty needed individuals courageous enough to voice the truth. Xiao Kong expressed her gratitude and departed. There was no need for preparation. The closed newspaper was reopened immediately. She borrowed a squad of soldiers from Cheng Chimo to safeguard the newspaper. The first report was published, Cheng Chimo's return. Those who spread rumors, do you tremble now? The newspaper flew off the shelves upon publication. Xiao Kong included all the slanders against the Tang court, vehemently criticizing the government's inaction during the pandemic, neglecting the plight of the common people. Cheng Chimo observed all of this with a smile in his heart, finding it satisfying. Upon returning to the villa, he found the small widow tidying up the room, which was impeccably clean. A message arrived. The military god, Li Jing, was gravely ill and wished to see him one last time. Cheng Chimo paused upon hearing this. Li Jing was unwell, but he did not rush to Chang'an to see him. Instead, he retrieved a pill from the doorway and instructed the soldier to deliver it to Li Jing, informing him that it would extend his life by 3 days and to wait for him. Cheng Chimo returned to his room, feeling quite pleased as he surveyed the tidy surroundings. He settled onto the sofa, wishing for a remote control and a microphone. The small widow emerged from her room, clad in a slightly faded hanfu. Upon seeing Cheng Chimo, she beamed with joy and sat beside him. You're home early today. I'm still preparing dinner, she said. Cheng Chimo noticed her attire and felt a twinge of concern as she shifted her position, clutching the collar of her dress. What was she trying to hide? Her mother had warned her not to expose her left breast. If old Song knew how she dressed, he would surely reprimand her again. Cheng Chimo sighed, merely wishing to give her a change of clothes without any ulterior motives. Come here, he commanded. 2 special forces soldiers appeared at the door, standing by. Have the tailor bring women's clothing, he ordered. The soldiers complied, and Cheng Chimo turned to the small widow, frowning as she distanced herself from him, her movements cautious. Come closer, he insisted. Hesitantly, she moved to sit beside him, her head bowed in silence. Cheng Chimo contemplated giving her a playful swat, but refrained. Observing her gripping the collar of her dress, he decided to take matters into his own hands. Grasping her wrists, he lifted her arms above her head, leaving her momentarily stunned and unable to shield herself. With a chuckle, he reached towards her collar. Amid her startled cries, he discovered a wolf's head tattoo, sizable enough to dominate half her chest. Understanding dawned upon him. He realized why she was fearful of his gaze. As someone of his status, he was privy to many secrets, and such tattoos were exclusive to the royal family of the Liao kingdom. He released her hands, and she clutched her chest, tears brimming in her eyes, an expression of profound grievance. Cheng Chimo found it amusing, having come to know her passive nature over time. If he hadn't taken the initiative, he might never have seen it. Now that you've revealed it, what are you covering for? He teased. The small widow blinked, glancing down at her chest, and then at him. You're right. Now that it's seen, what is the point of covering? She released her grip and lunged at him playfully. You're bullying me. I want you back down, she declared, moving swiftly but was soon captured by Cheng Chimo, who playfully pinned her on the sofa. Help! He is bullying me, she cried. Outside, the special forces rushed to guard the entrance. ensuring that the commotion remained unheard. The small widow soon submitted, begging for mercy. Cheng Chumo released her, and she sat beside him, obedient and compliant. Not long after, the owner of a reputable fabric shop from Fufeng County arrived at the villa, hesitant to meet his gaze, aware of whose residence this was. They had read the newspaper, knowing Cheng Chumo had returned to reclaim control over Fufeng County. Cheng Chumo and the small widow stepped out of the villa together. The fabric shop owners quickly bowed in greeting. "We pay our respects to the Duke of Fufeng," they chorused, a phrase they had rehearsed all the way. Cheng Chumo nodded indifferently. "My wife requires a new outfit," he stated. The shop owner complied, promptly instructing the seamstress to take measurements for the small widow. "I want to see the finished outfit by tomorrow night," Cheng Chumo added. The shop owner acknowledged this with a hint of pressure, but remained undeterred. "How much will it cost?" Cheng Chumo inquired. The shop owner, fearing to ask for money, hastily refused. "Whatever the price, it's of no concern to me. Remember, don't worry about the cost. If I'm not satisfied, you can imagine the consequences," Cheng Chumo declared, finally settling on a sum of 100,000 coins. The small widow fainted in his arms upon hearing the price. What kind of outfit cost that much? Cheng Chumo scooped her up and carried her back to the villa, laying her gently on the bed. As she regained consciousness, she grasped Cheng Chumo's sleeve, her cheeks flushed. 100,000 coins is far too much. They must be deceiving us. What outfit could possibly be worth that? She protested, secretly calculating that the entire small town couldn't muster such an amount. Cheng Chumo sat by the bed, holding her hand. Money is meant to be spent. If it's not spent, it loses its value. Saving money for others is foolish. Enjoy today's joys without concern for tomorrow's troubles, he advised. The small widow nodded softly, unable to argue against his wisdom, feeling a sweetness in her heart and eager to share with Old Song. "Mother, my dress is worth an entire small town." The night passed without further incident. At dawn, the shop owner delivered the garment, a purple hanfu adorned with golden embroidery. Blushing, the small widow changed into the dress with Cheng Chumo's assistance. It was an outfit meant for a single individual to wear. After donning the attire, Cheng Chumo stared at her in awe. "Her grace is akin to that of Wang Fei. Prepare the carriage. We are heading to Chang'an," Cheng Chumo commanded. In Chang'an, at the Li residence, he assisted the small widow down from the carriage. Hand in hand, they entered the Li family home, where the entire clan awaited their arrival. "We pay our respects to the Duke and Duchess," they greeted. The members of the Li family spoke in unison. Cheng Chumo paid them no heed as he entered the grand hall. Li Jing stood at the entrance, his hair streaked with gray, leaning on a cane. Upon seeing Cheng Chumo, Li Jing smiled, and Cheng Chumo returned the smile. Although they were nominally master and disciple, Li Jing had done many things behind the scenes to nurture this bond, unbeknownst to Cheng Chumo. "Ha ha, please," Li Jing boomed with hearty laughter. Cheng Chumo clasped his fists and stepped into the hall. "Bring the princess to the back courtyard," Li Jing instructed. Cheng Chumo did not object. Today was Li Jing's last occasion to entertain guests, and none dared to cause a ruckus. The young widow appeared anxious, grasping Cheng Chumo's hand, reluctant to go. Cheng Chumo smiled and offered words of comfort. Only then did the widow follow the maidservants to the back courtyard to join the gathering of women. Cheng Chumo took his seat, leaving only himself and Li Jing in the grand hall. "Can you call me master?" Li Jing asked. In his final moments, Li Jing still hoped Cheng Chumo would be his successor. Only Cheng Chumo was worthy of taking over his mantle. Cheng Chumo rose, bowing deeply to Li Jing. Performing 3 formal bows, Li Jing sat upright, having his wish fulfilled. "Disciple, please take a seat. I have 3 days of light left. How shall I teach you?" Li Jing continued. Cheng Chumo nodded in agreement. Li Jing burst into laughter. "What is war?" he inquired. His time was limited, and he wished to avoid frivolous talk. "To annihilate the enemy," Cheng Chumo replied. "First comes battle, then contention. The heart must be conquered before the city. Remember, the greatest folly in war is underestimating the enemy. War is a matter of life and death," Li Jing warned. Chapter 291. The passing of Li Jing. Li Jing spoke at length, and Cheng Chumo listened intently. "I wish to take a stroll," Li Jing stated. Cheng Chumo nodded and prepared the war horse. "Master, please wait. I will fetch the princess," he said, rising to go to the back courtyard. The young widow sat to one side, surrounded by several women who were whispering among themselves. "Why are you dressed so lavishly? Who is your husband?" the women asked. The widow offered no reply, and the women's tone turned mocking. The Li family's maid hurried to defend the widow, nearly in tears. "These women are truly seeking trouble. Who dares to mock the wife of Cheng Chumo in the Tang dynasty? They must have a death wish. I do not wish to converse with you. Leave me be," the widow retorted fiercely. She was indeed formidable, having lived alone with the Old Song in a small town. She had to be tough to avoid being bullied. "So lacking in decorum? Just a few words and your true nature is revealed? Ha ha. Your family must be a mere local tycoon," the women scoffed. Cheng Chumo approached the widow, taking her hand and casting a stern glance at the women. "I, Cheng Chumo, may indeed be unsophisticated, but you are the first to dare to call me so," he declared. Li Jia hurried over, sweating upon hearing Cheng Chumo's words. Truly, some have offended Cheng Chumo without realizing it. "Your Highness, please calm down," he urged. Cheng Chumo regarded Li Jia with a cool expression, causing him to shiver. "This is your fault. You should have assigned someone to stay close to the princess. Today is my master's last occasion to host guests. I do not seek bloodshed. But my princess requires an explanation. Should my princess be displeased, the consequences are yours to imagine, Cheng Chumo warned, leading the widow away. The women were left dumbstruck. And once they regained their senses, they collapsed to the ground in tears. Jealousy among women can indeed be harmful. 3 women putting on a show was no exaggeration. Li Jia's face paled. Inform their families to come fetch them. They are forbidden from leaving their homes henceforth, he ordered. Cheng Chumo and the young widow mounted their horses. This was merely a minor disagreement. Do not punish them too harshly, the widow suggested. Being new to the elite circle, the widow did not comprehend the darkness that lurked within. She believed it to be a trivial matter. Cheng Chumo, however, held a different view. This was no small issue. The identity of the widow as a princess could not suffer any injustice, not even the slightest. Any insult to the princess, regardless of severity, must be met with punishment. The widow was a princess. What if she were not? How would those women treat her? They might mock her, or even attempt to seize her garments. This was not mere hyperbole. Those women were merely testing the waters. Had Cheng Chumo delayed, even slightly, who knows what might have transpired? Li Jing rode up to catch up with Cheng Chumo, unaccompanied, as he trusted Cheng Chumo to ensure his safety. 300 elite soldiers flanked them as they exited the city. Cheng Chumo's return sent Li Ji into a panic. Inside the palace at the Ganlu Hall, Li Ji paced back and forth, flanked by several military generals standing at attention. We must not allow Cheng Chumo to enter Chang'an again. Who among you will stop him? Li Ji demanded, pausing to glare at the generals. The generals remained silent, unwilling to act against Cheng Chumo. Had they lost their senses? Shui Rongui was formidable. Yet now he was missing. Furthermore, Cheng Chumo was the successor of the war god Li Jing. Which general, in their right mind, would dare to obstruct him? Li Ji's frustration mounted as he observed their inaction. You may all withdraw, he finally commanded, realizing he could not rely on them. Rising, he headed towards the Hall of Governance. Upon encountering Wu Meinyang, he found her already aware of Cheng Chumo's return and surmised his intentions. She looked at Li Ji with a wry smile. Some individuals were simply beyond Li Ji's capacity to offend, even as the emperor. Meanwhile, details of disaster relief had been leaked by the press. Li Ji's actions were now public knowledge, and the imperial authority had suffered an unprecedented blow. Cheng Chumo's ambitions were now clear to all. He intends to rebel, Wu Meinyang stated. Li Ji sank into a seat, his eyes reddening. I cannot sit idly by, he declared. Perhaps we could consult Yuan Tiangang, Wu Meinyang suggested. Yes, indeed. I shall seek out Yuan Tiangang, Li Ji replied, hastily departing. Wu Meinyang watched him go, a bitter smile on her lips. Her greatest aspiration had been to become empress, only to discover the helplessness that accompanied the position. She finally understood why Empress Changsun had departed. The palace was truly no place for humanity. Had the late emperor lived, perhaps Cheng Chumo would not have possessed the capability to rebel. Li Ji, you truly do not deserve to impede Cheng Chumo's advance, Wu Meinyang mused to herself. She observed Li Ji's actions with dismay, feeling a deep sense of frustration. He relied solely on the legacy left by Li Shimin, achieving nothing on his own. Without the foundation laid by Li Shimin, he would be nothing. One could not fathom why Li Shimin would bestow the throne upon him. Was his vision truly so clouded? Alas, my reign as empress has reached its limit. No, I must continue to strive for the title of empress. Wu Meinyang thought. If I cannot be Li Ji's empress, perhaps I could become Cheng Chumo's empress. Wu Meinyang was overreaching in her ambitions. Did Cheng Chumo even desire to be emperor? Outside the city, in a desolate mountain range, Li Jing rode his horse, gazing at the barren landscape. In the final moment of his teachings, Master Li Jing imparted the essence of power to his disciple. He glanced at Cheng Chumo, and then at the young widow, feeling a surge of joy in the vitality of youth. The young widow lay sweetly asleep in Cheng Chumo's embrace. Master, you speak, Cheng Chumo said earnestly, absorbing every word from Li Jing in recent days. The terrain, the water's flow, the aura of energy, and the might of authority. You now command 3 of these forces, and the kingdom is within your grasp, Li Jing asserted. Cheng Chumo nodded in agreement, recognizing the truth in his master's words. He held dominion over Gansu, the territories of Tubo, and Yuzhou. From any of these 4 locations, he could rise to power, especially with all 4 firmly under his control. Li Jing refrained from elaborating further on Cheng Chumo's potential to seize the throne. Act in accordance with the natural order. Do you comprehend why the late emperor sought to protect Tubo? It stands as the pinnacle of the world. To occupy it is to oversee the vast expanse of land below, making any military endeavor a matter of course. The late emperor did not live to see Tubo conquered. Such undertakings are left to you young ones, he explained. Cheng Chumo nodded again, understanding the significance of Tubo's dominance. The foreign powers covet Tubo for this very reason. It allows a view of the southern waves, the northern deserts, the eastern prosperity, and the western fortifications. The north is above, the south below, the west to the left, and the east to the right. This illustrates Tubo's importance, as well as the success of Li Shimin's most notable alliance. If Tubo were not part of the Tang, the empire would remain in turmoil, akin to a sword hanging above one's head. Disciple, war is endless. The larger the territory, the more challenging it is to control. One must satisfy the people's needs, Li Jing concluded, falling into silence. His head bowed, The legendary military god Li Jing passed away on the battlefield, leaving his legacy to be judged by posterity. There is no absolute right or wrong. The context alters perceptions. In the era of the Tang, Cheng Chimo believed Li Jing's assessments were indeed correct. He dismounted, carrying the young widow, and knelt before Li Jing's steed. "Master, may your journey be peaceful," Cheng Chimo spoke. The young widow wept, having listened intently for the past few days. Li Jing truly deserved the title of military god. It was a fitting tribute. Chapter 292. The first confrontation with Li Ji. The entire army mourned as the horns sounded. During the morning court, Li Ji slumped upon the dragon throne, lamenting the loss of a pillar of support for the Tang. The previous day, he had inquired of Yuan Tiangang on how to prevent Cheng Chimo from rebelling. Yuan Tiangang had replied that as long as Li Jing lived, he could keep the troops in line. With Li Jing's passing, Cheng Chimo would face no rivals, and the army would inevitably surrender. Yuan Tiangang's words rang true. Li Jing had commanded the military throughout his life, serving as the very foundation of the Tang. With his demise, the empire teetered on the brink of collapse. "Your Majesty, please take care of yourself," Su Jingzong urged. The ministers remained silent, unable to voice their thoughts, unwilling to further offend Cheng Chimo. The reasoning was simple. Before his death, Li Jing had declared that Cheng Chimo was his successor as the military leader. No minister would dare provoke the military, for they were not foolish. "Prepare my mourning garments," Li Ji commanded. The eunuchs complied. Li Ji was to pay his respects. At the Li residence, white lanterns adorned the entrance, and the somber colors of black and white dominated the day. Cheng Chimo donned white attire, as did the young widow, who, after 3 days of listening to Li Jing's lessons, could be considered his half-disciple. Li Jia publicly declared the young widow as Li Jing's second disciple, to which Cheng Chimo raised no objections, understanding Li Jia's motivations. With the downfall of their leader, Li Jia sought to align himself with Cheng Chimo, recognizing the latter as a mighty ally. "His Majesty has arrived," a eunuch announced. Everyone stood aside, ready to welcome Li Ji. The young widow prepared to step aside, but Cheng Chimo grasped her hand, saying, "No need." The young widow was puzzled, questioning why it was unnecessary, for wasn't the emperor the highest authority? Li Ji and Wu Meinyang, clad in white, entered the Li residence and encountered Cheng Chimo and the young widow. Cheng Chimo stood with his hands clasped behind his back, gazing forward. Li Ji felt a barely perceptible shiver, noticed only by Wu Meinyang, who sighed inwardly, sensing impending doom. The two locked eyes, marking the first direct confrontation since Li Ji ascended to the throne. Fear gripped him, yet he could not show weakness. If Cheng Chimo remained motionless, he too was bound to stay still. If the emperor spoke first, it would signify the end of his reign. Cheng Chimo remained impassive, calmly observing Li Ji. An unspoken aura filled the air, leaving the young widow feeling a chill. None among the civil and military ministers dared to speak, including Su Jingzong and Changsun Wuji. Su Jingzong wished he could disappear into a crack in the ground, while Changsun Wuji maintained a serene expression, lost in thought. Li Jia, sweating profusely, was uncertain of what to do. Wu Meinyang looked toward Cheng Chimo with pleading eyes, hoping he would show leniency. She was mistaken. Even with the Empress Dowager by Li Ji's side, it would make no difference. Cheng Chimo had made his intentions clear upon arriving in Chang'an. He was declaring war. Li Jing understood Cheng Chimo's resolve and made his decision, naming Cheng Chimo as his successor. This sentiment resonated with many military leaders, who wished to avoid confrontation with Cheng Chimo, lacking confidence in overcoming him. The ministers were equally aware of the choice before them: support Li Ji or Cheng Chimo. Choosing Li Ji appeared to uphold the notion of legitimacy, yet legitimacy could not defeat Cheng Chimo. Opting for Cheng Chimo, however, posed the risk of losing their current status. Thus, they found themselves in a dilemma, choosing to observe the unfolding events. Seeing Cheng Chimo's unwavering stance, Wu Meinyang bit her lip and stepped forward. "Greetings, brother-in-law," she said. Li Ji, recovering from his surprise, followed suit. "Greetings, brother-in-law." Cheng Chimo sighed internally. Wu Meinyang truly understood human nature. He was unafraid of Li Ji's potential hostility, for he had come to confront him. What he feared was being addressed as brother-in-law by both Li Ji and Wu Meinyang. "No need for formalities," Cheng Chimo replied casually. The ministers were taken aback. Cheng Chimo had just instructed Li Ji to forego the customary respect. Regardless of Li Ji's response, he would find himself in a precarious position. Cheng Chimo disregarded Li Ji further and led the young widow into the morning hall. They approached the incense altar and knelt, offering their respects. "Master, I have attentively absorbed your lessons over these 3 days. As you embark on your journey to the heavens, I have nothing to offer you but this incense to guide you to the skies," Cheng Chimo proclaimed, kneeling thrice before rising. Li Ji's expression darkened. Cheng Chimo dared to be the first to light the incense, disregarding the emperor's authority. The ministers comprehended Cheng Chimo's intentions. He was no longer willing to endure subjugation. It was understandable. He had tolerated Li Shimin's dominance due to the latter's merit. But Li Ji, a mere second-generation emperor, held no such weight. Cheng Chimo, rising to his feet, extended his hand to assist the young widow. The ministers, puzzled, speculated on the significance of his actions and why he had brought her along. Their minds struggled to grasp the deeper meaning behind it all. Yet, one individual understood: Li Tai, who stood at the rear of the crowd, observing Cheng Chimo with a bitter smile. His plans had once again unraveled. Cheng Chimo had laid his cards on the table. The throne was beyond reach. He could scheme against Li Ji, but faced with Cheng Chimo, he felt a profound lack of confidence. The methods Cheng Chimo employed to cultivate his subordinates had yielded results that even he found intimidating, more loyal than ever before. Cheng Chimo helped the widow to her feet and positioned himself beside her. Li Ji, gritting his teeth in secret, found himself ensnared in a dilemma. Wu Mingyang cast an envious glance at the widow, reflecting that when men falter, women are often the ones to suffer. Your Majesty, shall we pay our respects? Today marks the day of the military god's eternal rest, regardless of precedence, Wu Mingyang suggested. Li Ji's heart felt heavy. For the ministers who usually vied for his attention were silent today, stifled by Cheng Chimo's overwhelming presence. He finally understood why his father had hesitated to pressure Cheng Chimo too closely. If Cheng Chimo lost control, the Tang dynasty would be in peril. No wonder his father had kept the empress beside Cheng Chimo to restrain him. With a bitter smile, he looked to Wu Mingyang, the sole person willing to speak on his behalf. Gratefulness welled within him as he composed himself and bowed alongside her. May the military god rest well, Li Ji proclaimed. He had prepared an elaborate eulogy, but now found himself devoid of the spirit to deliver it. After a brief moment, he departed with Wu Mingyang. Before leaving, she cast a pleading look at Cheng Chimo, making her final effort to dissuade him from taking further action. Cheng Chimo, however, pretended not to notice. His decision was firm and not one to be swayed by a mere woman. By bringing the widow along, he was making a declaration to all. I, Cheng Chimo, am without an heir, yet as long as I am emperor, I shall have one. I need not rely on another's empress to bear children. I have my own empress. As Su Jingzong approached to pay his respects, he averted his gaze, unwilling to meet Cheng Chimo's eyes. Su Jingzong, the deeds you have committed will not go unpunished. Consider carefully how you will meet your end or atone for your sins, Cheng Chimo warned. Su Jingzong shivered, forcing a smile that resembled a grimace. When it was the general's turn to pay their respects, 3 or 5 approached at once, bowing deeply before Cheng Chimo. We salute the marshal, all the generals proclaimed. This was not merely a testament to Cheng Chimo's esteem, but rather a reflection of the waning authority of the military god, Li Jing. His successor was none other than the commander of the 3 armies. After the ceremony, Cheng Chimo departed the Li household with the widow, heading towards the Cheng residence. Cheng Yaojin, his face darkened, felt the urge to strike his son on the back of the head, but restrained himself multiple times. Fact, prepare the meal, cook more beef. For Daliang loves it, Cheng Chimo instructed. After speaking, he shot Cheng Yaojin a fierce glare before turning his attention to the widow. His expression instantly transforming into one of warmth. My daughter-in-law has returned, Cheng Yaojin declared, his demeanor so amiable that one might mistake him for a doting father. The widow nodded obediently. Thank you, father, she replied. Cheng Yaojin beamed with joy, practically glowing. Cui Shi, unable to watch any longer, subtly pinched Cheng Yaojin. Only then did he realize he had lost his composure. Clearing his throat, he attempted to regain his authoritative demeanor. The widow lowered her gaze, intimidated by Cheng Yaojin's imposing presence. Sensing her fear, he grew anxious. Daughter-in-law, speak. Has Daliang mistreated you? I shall deal with him. Cheng Yaojin insisted, his face darkening. The widow, feeling even more frightened, hid behind Cheng Chimo, thinking her father too fearsome, ready to take extreme measures against her husband. Cui Shi smiled reassuringly at the widow. Your father is just like that. He has his moments. It will soon pass. Do not be afraid, she said, pulling Cheng Yaojin away. He protested, wanting to confront Cheng Chimo. Cui Shi firmly grasped his ear, reminding him of her unwavering loyalty during his previous rebellion, which had elevated her status significantly. Once caught, Cheng Yaojin obediently followed her, though not without casting a final glare at Cheng Chimo. Cheng Chimo wore a smile throughout, feeling a sense of contentment. The feeling of home was delightful. He drew the widow closer, reassuring her, do not fear, my father is like that. In time, you will come to understand that he may seem fierce, but if you ignore him, he will remain fierce. The widow giggled, finding it amusing. Cheng Chimo led her back to their room, where the meal would take some time to prepare. In Cheng Yaojin's chamber, once they entered, Cui Shi released her grip. Cheng Yaojin's ears remained unflushed. He was merely taking advantage of the situation. What is Daliang's situation? Who is this girl? He inquired. He could not help but ponder the implications of bringing a girl home. What else could it mean? The child has grown up, Cui Shi replied with a smile. Aligning herself firmly with Cheng Chimo, having his back as a stepmother, she was equally committed to protecting her son. Cheng Yaojin nodded, agreeing with her assessment. Cui Shi retrieved a box from the bedside, producing a jade hairpin. This is a special gift for my daughter-in-law. The one she wears is ordinary, Cui Shi said. Cheng Yaojin was taken aback. Cui Shi cherished that hairpin and rarely parted with it. Did she really intend to give it away? Seeing his astonishment, Cui Shi smiled knowingly. She was perceptive, recognizing that the widow bore the weight of hardship, always cautious in her demeanor. The housekeeper, Fak, announced that the meal was ready, and the family gathered to dine. Cheng Chimo and Cheng Yaojin drank together while the younger brothers sat quietly, afraid to speak a word, fearing reprisal. Cui Shi persistently offered the widow more food. Eat well, this is delicious, she urged. The widow took small bites, feeling somewhat awkward. Noticing her discomfort, Cheng Yaojin began to speculate wildly about the reasons behind it. Finally, he concluded that the 5 rascals were the cause of her unease. You 5, go outside to eat. Cheng Yaojin commanded. The younger brothers, feeling as if they had been granted a pardon, hurriedly left, relieved to escape the pressure of dining with Cheng Yaojin and Cheng Chimo. Cui Shi shook her head, perplexed by her husband's behavior. Your father is just like that. Let us eat and enjoy this beef, she reassured. The widow expressed her gratitude. And after the meal, she was drawn into a warm conversation with Cui Shi. Meanwhile, Cheng Yaojin and Cheng Chimo stepped outside. I am preparing to rebel, Cheng Chimo stated. Gazing at the radiant moon, Cheng Yaojin was not taken aback. Well, I once played emperor for a few days. It wasn't that thrilling. You best think it through. He advised. Cheng Chimo nodded, recognizing the burdens of being an emperor, yet he was unwilling to endure further vexations. In truth, there existed a superior approach. Cheng Yaojin spoke. When Cheng Chimo inquired about this method, Cheng Yaojin fell silent, hands clasped behind his back, leaving with an air of inscrutability. Cheng Chimo was at a loss. Pondering the reasons behind such arrogance, no solutions were offered. Shaking his head in bewilderment, he retreated to his quarters. Within the room, the young widow admired a jade hairpin. Her face alight with delight. It was her first possession of such exquisite quality. Cheng Chimo approached the bedside and sat down. Isn't it beautiful? The widow remarked, waving the hairpin before Cheng Chimo's eyes, eager to showcase her treasure. Cheng Chimo, dizzy from the display, succumbed to sleep. The widow lay beside him, entranced by the hairpin throughout the night, rising in the morning with the appearance of a panda. A maid entered, carrying a basin. Cheng Chimo washed his face and dried it. Sleep a little longer. I must attend court, he stated. The widow, having no intention of resting, tidied herself and sought out Lady Cui for conversation. The jade hairpin had successfully won her over. As Cheng Chimo exited the Cheng residence, Yuan Tiangang stood a short distance away. Cheng Chimo approached him. Heading to court? Yuan Tiangang inquired. The two walked side by side, special forces flanking Cheng Chimo. Yes, to resolve a few matters, Cheng Chimo replied, his heart racing with anticipation. After 20 years of restraint, he was ready to take initiative, believing he possessed the strength to do so. What, in your opinion, constitutes a sage ruler? Yuan Tiangang asked, skeptical of Cheng Chimo's potential to embody such a figure, perceiving him as ruthless, akin to mowing down grass. Cheng Chimo reflected on past emperors, Qin Shi Huang, Han Wu, Tang Zong, and Song Zhu. He favored Qin Shi Huang, who buried scholars and burned books, yet his harsh governance led to widespread dissent. The use of severe punishments was ineffective. What of Tang Taizong Li Shimin? He preferred control over diligence, holding everyone tightly within his grasp, forbidding escape from his dominion. Old ministers either died of illness or revolted, with figures like Du Ruhui and Qin Shubao succumbing to natural causes. Was it mere coincidence that the illness of the Tang dynasty specifically targeted its officials? Du Ruhui, the architect behind the Xuanwu Gate incident, had supported the crown princely Chengqian and was not unjustly punished. A man capable of orchestrating one coup could do so again. Li Shimin had to eliminate him. As for Song Zhu, he donned the yellow robe and instigated the Qinxiao mutiny. He had redeeming qualities, albeit limited capabilities and a small territory. Contemplating these figures, Cheng Chimo arrived at his conclusions. After a successful rebellion, he would learn from their strengths and weaknesses. To traverse time and not claim the throne, that would merely signify a traveler, akin to visiting the Forbidden City for photographs. Moreover, having crossed over, Yuan Tiangang observed Cheng Chimo intently for a long moment. I advise you to abandon this pursuit. Ruling as emperor is no simple feat. This was, indeed, Yuan Tiangang's true intention. Chapter 294. The palace coup. Cheng Chimo halted, confronting Yuan Tiangang. Did your Taoist sect lend assistance during the recent disaster relief? Cheng Chimo questioned. Yuan Tiangang nodded, admitting their minimal impact. I will not hold it against you. The Buddhist sect is now under my control. Do you wish to remain aloof? Follow me. I require a strategist, Cheng Chimo declared. Yuan Tiangang stood frozen, watching Cheng Chimo depart with a bitter smile. With one Li Shimin gone, another Cheng Chimo arises. To live long is also a form of sin, he mused, shaking his head, foreseeing the end of prosperous days. Though Cheng Chimo outwardly exerted no pressure, he had effectively issued a warning, asserting his dominance over the Buddhist sect. He conveyed to Yuan Tiangang that their sect was not as vital as they believed. Descent would lead them to the mountains, where they would no longer have the opportunity to descend. I am curious to see what kind of emperor you will become. If you truly possess the capability, I shall provide you with the Tue Bei Tu, Yuan Tiangang remarked. The Tue Bei Tu was not meant for the common populace to behold. Cheng Chimo arrived at the imperial palace. The guards knelt before him. He continued deeper into the palace. The Qianyo guards, upon seeing Cheng Chimo, were momentarily stunned before hastily kneeling. As descendants of military generals, they had been informed by their forebears of the consequences of failing to pay respects. No one was foolish. The military had fully pledged allegiance to Cheng Chimo. The civil officials were of little consequence, and the aristocracy dared not confront him directly. Cheng Chimo had not allowed the Fufeng command to utter a word, a clear indication of his authority. The lower officials had long harbored grievances against Li Ji's policies. Li Ji sought confrontation between the north and south, akin to two elephants battling, leaving the grass to suffer. Passing by the Ganlu Hall, a few large black dogs wandered about. Upon noticing Cheng Chimo, the dogs tilted their heads in curiosity. Cheng Chimo crouched down, and the black dogs approached, tails wagging. He patted each of their heads. Are you the descendants of treading snow? Cheng Chimo asked. The dogs were unaware of his words, but felt a sense of familiarity. Indeed, they were familiar. Their father had shared drinks with Cheng Chimo. After amusing the dogs for a while, Cheng Chimo stood and proceeded to the Tai Chi Hall, the center of power in Chang'an. Upon reaching the hall, he gazed at the plaque. Years had passed since his last visit, and the once clear atmosphere had become murky. It is time, Cheng Chimo declared. He entered the grand hall with hands clasped behind his back. The military officials knelt collectively. We greet the commander, they intoned in unison. Cheng Chimo's gaze fell upon Li Ji, whose eyes were bloodshot, fists tightly clenched as he fixed an intense stare on Cheng Chimo. Wu Mingyang sat beside Li Ji. Her expression complex. As a witness to the Li Tang dynasty's evolution, she had been intimately acquainted with both Li Shimin and Li Ji, knowing them better than anyone else. Wu Mingyang observed the changes in the Li Tang dynasty with both pain and clarity. Li Ji was indeed faltering, failing to grasp any leverage against Cheng Chimo while simultaneously provoking him. A eunuch holding a child approached Wu Mingyang from behind. This was Li Ji's last resort. Wu Mingyang smiled wryly. Was Li Ji truly foolish? How could this child, grown thus, possibly be his? Could the Empress Changsun bear such a child? Cheng Chimo, you have not seen your child since birth, but today, I shall allow you to meet him, Li Ji declared through gritted teeth, intent on one final desperate act. Cheng Chimo remained unfazed, internally lamenting his status as a time traveler, akin to a player in a game. Could he possibly have children? Was the child born to Empress Changsun truly his? Were he and Empress Changsun even from the same world? Not just Empress Changsun, but he was not from the same realm as any woman. They could not bear children, for Cheng Chimo had conducted experiments, leading to the ultimate conclusion that he would leave no heirs. So, whose child was Empress Changsun's? Ah, indeed. What is truly real? Who stands as the greatest obstacle on Cheng Chimo's path to the throne? Once led to the grave by Li Shimin. The main tomb chamber houses two coffins, one belonging to Li Shimin, but to whom does the other belong? Was it prepared for Cheng Chimo? Could it be possible? Li Ji, I have underestimated you. Do you truly believe that a mere child can hinder my progress? Throughout my life, I have slaughtered millions. To kill one is a crime. To slay thousands is a mark of prowess, and I, Cheng Chimo, have claimed the lives of millions. What does that make me? Cheng Chimo spoke with a tone of indifference. He has come to terms with everything. Nothing matters more than becoming emperor. Anyone can deceive Cheng Chimo, but awakening him is the gravest mistake. Li Ji stood in shock, while Wu Mingyang gazed at Cheng Chimo in a daze. Yes, to slaughter millions. Do you think you can leverage lives against him? Does such a person fear death? No matter how many perish, his brow would not furrow. Cheng Chimo chose to ignore Li Ji, turning his attention to the civil officials. Do you wish for death? He asked coldly. The atmosphere in the grand hall shifted, instantly chilling. The aristocratic ministers bowed deeply, their strength diminished by Li Ji's manipulation. They no longer had the power to confront Cheng Chimo. Li Ji, witnessing the aristocrat's submission, felt a pang of regret. The once proud families had bowed their heads. Heavenly sins may be forgiven, but self-inflicted ones are inexcusable. Once, the 7 great families united could shake the imperial authority. The alliance compelled Cheng Chimo to tread carefully. Each family could demand 20 million coins from him, leaving him powerless. In the end, they offered nothing, and he could do naught but accept it. A single family's favor had sent Cheng Chimo on his way. Had the 7 great families banded together today, he would not have smoothly seized the throne. Yet they could not. Some matters remain unspoken. When the time comes for them to repay their debts, the 7 great families will lead, and other officials will not stand firm. The hard-nosed ministers have already retired to live out their days in peace. The likes of Su Jingzong are mere sycophants, swaying with the wind. Can one rely on them? They could expect Wu Mingyang to ascend, yet she would not become empress. Cheng Chimo glanced at Changsun Wuji, who bowed respectfully. He then turned his gaze to Su Jingzong. Su Jingzong shivered, pulling out a yellow dragon robe stolen from the palace. He carefully approached Cheng Chimo, cradling the robe in his hands, and draped it over him with utmost caution. After stepping back 3 paces, he bowed deeply, declaring, Minister Su Jingzong pays his respects to your majesty. This act left Cheng Chimo momentarily speechless. The ministers stared at Su Jingzong in awe, silently exclaiming their admiration. Once they regained their composure, they collectively bowed, proclaiming, We pay our respects to your majesty. Outside the hall, the special forces knelt on one knee, proclaiming, We pay our respects to your majesty. The Qianyo guard followed suit, as did the eunuchs and palace maids, all kneeling in reverence. The entire palace echoed with the proclamation of respect. Li Ji's hands drooped helplessly. Am I so unloved? He lamented bitterly, glancing at Wu Mingyang, hoping she might offer a word of support, even if futile. Wu Mingyang smiled wryly. She would not speak on his behalf. From the moment Li Ji forcefully took advantage of her mother, she ceased to be the Wu Mingyang who once devoted herself to aiding him. Some actions are permissible, but why resort to coercion? Is it amusing to bully orphans and widows? That is a betrayal of one's conscience. Chapter 295. Ascension to the throne. Wu Mingyang lamented the absence of a male heir in the Wu family. She approached Cheng Chimo, standing 3 meters away, casting a glare at Su Jingzong, who hastily moved aside. She bowed respectfully, addressing him as brother-in-law, Your Majesty. She sought a path for herself. Li Ji had been stripped of his power. Cheng Chimo nodded in acknowledgement. Wu Meinyang was the first to receive his response. The Wu family had indeed suffered misfortune. The elder sister was taken by Cheng Chimo, and the mother was taken by Li Ji. Such is fate. Were it anyone else, Cheng Chimo would not have responded. Wu Meinyang, however, was different. She was a remarkable talent. Cheng Chimo subtly raised his left arm. Wu Meinyang paused, realizing there was room for her arm to fit within that gap. Cheng Chimo's intentions were unmistakable. Gritting her teeth, she resigned herself to fate. At worst, she would leave behind an unmarked grave, indifferent to the scorn or curses that might follow. She would cast aside her shame, embracing a life of freedom. Wu Meinyang stepped to Cheng Chimo's left, wrapping her arms around his brother-in-law, she said. The ministers were left speechless. How many had referred to Cheng Chimo as brother-in-law? The familial ties were indeed convoluted, befitting the title of sister-in-law. Cheng Chimo proceeded towards the dragon couch, with Wu Meinyang linking her arm with his. Li Ji's eyes bulged. His face flushed. He spat blood and collapsed onto the dragon couch. Cheng Chimo glanced at Li Ji with indifference. Enjoy your retirement. You have failed the trials of emperorship. And you are unworthy of the throne, he remarked. A few eunuchs approached and dragged Li Ji away. Cheng Chimo seated himself upon the dragon couch, with Wu Meinyang beside him. We pay our respects to your majesty. The civil and military officials bowed in unison, their movements synchronized and voices resounding. Su Jingzong's enthusiasm was particularly evident. Cheng Chimo maintained a neutral expression. Being emperor felt rather unremarkable. Wu Meinyang, however, felt a profound transformation, sitting beside Li Ji. She perceived the ministers as cunning. Now seated next to Cheng Chimo, she felt an aura of purity among them. The ministers indeed appeared innocent. Fearful of being eliminated by Cheng Chimo, Ma Zhou entered the grand hall, a few strands of white hair gracing his head. He approached the front, bowing slightly. The minister, wish to impeach your majesty. Why did you not inform us old officials about your ascension to the throne? How much longer can I serve? Ma Zhou stated. The ministers watched Cheng Chimo anxiously. Ma Zhou had been invited back as a means to gauge Cheng Chimo's response. Should Cheng Chimo acknowledge the impeachment, the ministers could anticipate a favorable future. If he rejected it, he would be deemed a tyrant, and their fate would be dire. Cheng Chimo smiled. Minister Ma, you possess the talent for governance. It is my fault for not inviting you to witness my ascension today, he replied. Ma Zhou bowed deeply, tears streaming down his face. The rest of the court shared in the excitement. The Tang dynasty had finally regained its brilliance. Their good fortune was at hand. If there are matters to address, present them. If not, the court is dismissed, Cheng Chimo declared. The ministers began to present their petitions. Your Majesty's ascension is a momentous occasion. It warrants a nationwide celebration. We request a general amnesty, Su Jingzong proposed. I almost forgot about you, Cheng Chimo replied, not engaging with the suggestion of amnesty. Su Jingzong wanted to slap himself for his own impulsiveness. Cheng Chimo smiled at him, and the ministers felt a sense of satisfaction. Su Jingzong, why have you ceased your boasting? You should engage in some gossip. The Tang dynasty has established a diplomatic department, and I find you exceptionally suited for this role. Henceforth, you shall be responsible for the foreign affairs of the Tang. Go forth and cause havoc, Cheng Chimo declared. The ministers raised their heads in unison, some trembling with excitement. Su Jingzong as a diplomat? What an intriguing scenario that would be. How would those foreign envoys fare? Would they be utterly mistreated? Certainly. The thought of foreigners experiencing the same grievances as them delighted the ministers immensely. This appointment is truly remarkable. On my first day as emperor, I refrain from bloodshed and place Su Jingzong in the most fitting position. The ministers bowed deeply. Your Majesty is astute, they chorused. Su Jingzong trembled with excitement, wishing to bow deeply to Cheng Chimo. This is the hallmark of a wise ruler. This is his rightful position. Su Jingzong bowed at a 90-degree angle. Your Majesty, rest assured, I shall ensure that they find no way to live or die, Su Jingzong proclaimed. Wu Meinyang gazed at Cheng Chimo in astonishment, never having anticipated such an arrangement from him. She leaned weakly against Cheng Chimo's shoulder. This evening, I must show my devotion. This is true heroism. Indeed, Su Aiqing. I am well aware of your capabilities. I was quite distressed when you slandered me. I have a task for you. Contact the Marine Corps, Nyo. The Japanese have offended me. You shall handle it as you see fit, Cheng Chimo instructed. Su Jingzong resolved in his heart. Cheng Chimo's favorite pastime is to raise cities. As for the Japanese crimes, Your Majesty, we shall deal with them severely. Now that Cheng Chimo is emperor, he cannot conduct massacres. A plan has emerged. Your Majesty need not worry. I shall ensure that the Japanese are thoroughly drained of their blood, Su Jingzong asserted. Cheng Chimo nodded. Su Jingzong is certainly adept at this task. Very well, I have complete faith in your abilities, Su Aiqing. Cheng Chimo added. Your Majesty is wise. The ministers echoed once more. Cheng Chimo turned to look at Changsun Wuji, who bowed his head. It is time for you to retire, Cheng Chimo stated. Changsun Wuji acquiesced. The ministers remained silent. Allowing Changsun Wuji to return home to rest is quite appropriate. There is no need for extravagant displays. A general amnesty is unnecessary. All cases will be re-examined, still under the scrutiny of the original officials, who will be held accountable for life. I grant you all an opportunity for redemption. Cheng Chumo continued. The ministers felt a surge of excitement. Cheng Chumo is indeed a benevolent man. This marks a significant departure from his former ruthless nature. If you wrongfully execute an innocent, I must apologize to the people. They deserve an explanation, and there will be oversight. Cheng Chumo added. Some rejoiced, while others were dismayed. The court was adjourned. Cheng Chumo rose and left the grand hall, making his way to the back garden. Here, the world's flora gathered, and strolling through the garden felt akin to traversing the entire realm. Wu Meinyang continued to cling to Cheng Chumo's arm. Cheng Chumo turned to her. Have you not yet had your fill? Cheng Chumo inquired. Wu Meinyang shot him a glare, reluctantly releasing her grip. They arrived at a pavilion surrounded by the songs of birds and the fragrance of flowers. Cheng Chumo closed his eyes. Being an emperor does not feel particularly extraordinary. I had anticipated a surge of excitement. Who would have thought it would unfold so seamlessly? The alignment of position and power is perfect. Cheng Chumo's strength has long surpassed imperial authority. What is there to be excited about? It merely entails a larger sphere of control. Your Majesty. The Empress and the concubines seek an audience. A eunuch bowed. Let them in, Cheng Chumo replied. The eunuch complied. Wu Meinyang's expression soured. All men are the same. You will be exhausted before long, she muttered. A throng of women entered, no fewer than 300. Cheng Chumo was speechless. That was an overwhelming number. If he were to attend to one each day, it would take a year. No wonder the outside world whispers that the imperial palace is as deep as the sea. These concubines were all consorts of Li Shimin. Even after his death, they remained in the palace. Empress Yang was particularly animated, as she had feared for her son's life. She never anticipated that Cheng Chumo would seize power directly. This is the best outcome. Ma Zhou requests an audience, the eunuch announced. Let him in, Cheng Chumo replied. Ma Zhou entered the garden and was displeased upon seeing the multitude of women. Your Majesty cannot be so enraptured by feminine allure. I must impeach you, Ma Zhou declared. Cheng Chumo's mouth twitched. Ma Zhou's outburst was reminiscent of Wei Zheng. This is it. I shall surely have no peace from here on, as those ministers will undoubtedly follow suit and seek to impeach Cheng Chumo. Chapter 296. The burden of the emperor. I have just ascended the throne and need to relax a bit, Cheng Chumo remarked. Ma Zhou bowed, silently dissenting. Cheng Chumo's expression darkened. Does Ma Zhou not comprehend who he is dealing with? This is undoubtedly courting trouble. Bring forth the memorials for the emperor's review, Ma Zhou commanded. Soon, the high officials of the 6 ministries arrived, carrying burdens on their shoulders. Cheng Chumo's face grew even darker. Just how many memorials are there? Could there be 1,000? Preparing to unleash his anger, he was embraced by Wu Meinyang. Brother-in-law, you must not punish them, if there are truly that many memorials. Consider the vastness of the Tang dynasty and the multitude of matters each day. This is a mere fraction, Wu Meinyang said, feeling quite pleased. This is the work of a virtuous empress, indeed. Li Ji had far fewer memorials during his reign. Typically, only a few significant matters were presented to him. Even those few he seldom reviewed. Ma Zhou and the others nodded in agreement towards Wu Meinyang, silently acknowledging her merit. Cheng Chumo, feeling helpless, sighed deeply. With over 300 beauties to attend to, he could only peruse these tedious documents. He forced a smile. Very well, let us examine them here, Cheng Chumo stated. Ma Zhou and the others acquiesced. The eunuchs began to arrange the documents, while Ma Zhou and the others sat to one side, diligently categorizing them. Cheng Chumo observed a curious fact. The top-tier officials were not greedy. It was those below who were. Those who had risen from humble beginnings tended to be the most ruthless towards those beneath them. Perhaps it is due to their understanding of the struggles. Ma Zhou presented a memorial, placing it before Cheng Chumo. Cheng Chumo sat cross-legged. The Minister of Rights, red-faced and agitated, admonished, Your Majesty. Sitting in such a manner is inappropriate. You should kneel while seated. The Minister of Rights insisted. Other ministers nodded in agreement. Cheng Chumo was at a loss. He had no choice but to comply. These officials seemed to act as Cheng Chumo's instructors, pointing out every minor infraction without regard for who is emperor. Look at this memorial, Ma Zhou urged. Cheng Chumo opened the document. It detailed a case of 2 commoners seeking divorce, prompted by a wealthy merchant's interest in the woman. Such matters are presented to me, Cheng Chumo exclaimed in anger. Ma Zhou shook his head, explaining that any memorial reaching the emperor's hands is significant. What may appear as a trivial case, if left unaddressed, could become a recurring issue in the Tang. Over time, the populace would harbor grievances. What then? It is an unsolvable dilemma. There are no trivial matters in the state. How do you propose we handle this? Ma Zhou inquired. Cheng Chumo, feeling helpless, began to ponder. The wealthy merchant's assets were confiscated, and he compensated the common folk with 100 coins. A woman was sent to the sea to assist the merchant in shipbuilding. Cheng Chumo spoke. Ma Zhou was in agreement, yet he refrained from questioning the correctness of Cheng Chumo's solution, as he too was uncertain of the proper course of action. The Minister of Revenue presented a memorial before Cheng Chumo. Upon perusing it, Cheng's expression darkened. The trade of human trafficking in Zhengzhou was rampant and persistent despite repeated prohibitions. Cheng Chumo declared that new laws would be enacted. Any human trafficker caught would face confiscation of all assets, and their entire clan would be exiled, with no rights to continue their lineage, and they would not be pardoned even if granted clemency. Ma Zhou began to take notes, while the 6 ministers listened in silent trepidation. The emperor must harbor immense hatred for traffickers, although they did not commit murder. Such a punishment was tantamount to exterminating a family. No one dared to question this decree. They could compel Cheng Chumo to review memorials, but they could not challenge his decisions. Such is the nature of imperial power, regardless of the righteousness of Cheng Chumo's decisions. He ordered all cases to be returned for retrial, citing the overwhelming workload of officials. Ma Zhou remarked. With a resounding clap, Cheng Chumo slammed his palm on the table. Rising to glare at Ma Zhou. What nonsense are you spouting? Do you think my workload is any lighter? Let me tell you. If the Tang cannot achieve a state where doors remain unlocked at night, then no one shall expect peace. Cheng Chumo roared. You speak of heavy workloads. Who among us has it easy? From now on, any derelict officials shall be sent to the coast to build ships for me. And those noble families best not rest. If they fail to innovate something beneficial to the state and its people within a year, they shall be stripped of their possessions and their entire clan sent to Shangxi to mine coal for me. Cheng Chumo added. Ma Zhou was left splattered with spittle as he began to jot down notes. The memorials were reviewed from dusk until deep into the night, without a hint of reduction. Cheng Chumo lay in bed, disillusioned. Is this truly the work of a human being? Wu Meinyang approached with a tea tray. Your Majesty, please have some tea. Cheng Chumo sat up and took a sip. Wu Meinyang removed her shoes and climbed into bed. A female official stood at the door with paper and pen, prepared to record. On the first day of Cheng Chumo's reign, the former Empress Wu Meinyang took to the bed. Cheng Chumo stared vacantly at the official, then at Wu Meinyang beside him. Is this also to be recorded? He inquired. Wu Meinyang covered her head with the quilt. What does it matter? If you move even slightly, she will document it faithfully. This is called the daily record. If I were to send you out, how would she write it? Cheng Chumo remarked. Wu Meinyang pulled the quilt from her head, glaring at him. You are bullying me, she protested. I am not bullying you. I am merely curious about how she would write it, Cheng Chumo replied. She would summon another consort to join us, Wu Meinyang retorted. Throughout history, emperors have been mere stud bulls, with childbirth managed by the Ministry of Rites. The progeny must be numerous. There is no option for abstaining. Cheng Chumo lay back, resigned, pondering if this was indeed the life of an emperor. No wonder emperors often died young. It would be remarkable to live long under such conditions. He turned to meet Wu Meinyang's gaze, her expression alluring as the palace maids entered to light the lamps. Wu Meinyang drew closer. Morning broke, and Cheng Chumo was awakened by Wu Meinyang's gentle voice. Your Majesty, it is time to rise, court awaits. She implored softly. Cheng Chumo, still weary, was pulled from bed to dress, squinting throughout the process, utterly exhausted. Once attired, several eunuchs supported Cheng Chumo to the Hall of Supreme Harmony, where the ministers had already gathered. Cheng Chumo settled upon the dragon throne, groggily listening to the ministers present their memorials. One could not deny their remarkable efficiency. Su Jingzong had already set forth, and imperial edicts had been dispatched throughout the realm. Cheng Chumo nodded inwardly, realizing that the inefficiency did not lie within the court, but rather with Li Ji, who would dare claim their efficiency was lacking. As the presentations concluded, the ministers began to accuse Cheng Chumo of usurping the people's interests. The Fufeng Commandery should be nationalized, they argued. Cheng Chumo regarded them as a teacher would a class, clearly aware of their underhanded maneuvers. He lifted his teacup for a sip, awaiting the conclusion of their accusations. The Fufeng Commandery cannot be reclaimed for the state. We can instead develop another Fufeng Commandery, Cheng Chumo stated. The ministers listened attentively. Observing their demeanor, Cheng Chumo chuckled. Every town in the Tang must resemble Fufeng Commandery. All revenues from Fufeng shall support various regions, and local families must also contribute. Those who refuse shall face exile. The ministers bowed their heads, shocked by Cheng Chumo's harsh decree. Exile for not contributing? Such has never been done before. One minister expressed concern over potential rebellion. Ma Zhou, however, was delighted. Ah, splendid. I eagerly await their rebellion. Then I shall lead the charge myself. Cheng Chumo exclaimed, his tone filled with excitement. Ma Zhou's lips twitched involuntarily. The ministers lamented, astonished by an emperor who anticipated rebellion. After the court session, the 6 ministers did not depart, but followed Cheng Chumo to the side hall of the Hall of Supreme Harmony, the office of the ministers. Many undersecretaries awaited there. All edicts of the Tang originated from this place. Cheng Chumo knelt before the desk, as eunuchs served tea. Piles of memorials were delivered before him, and he felt overwhelmed, finally grasping the difficulty of governing a nation. As he lifted the teacup to drink, his expression soured upon inspecting the tea. Something was amiss. He glanced at the eunuch who served it, who averted his gaze. Cheng Chumo sensed a troubling undertone. Bring him here. Pour this tea down his throat, he commanded. Several special forces personnel entered, restraining the eunuch and forcing the tea down. Cheng Chumo stood, his face cold as he surveyed the scene. You must know who my master is. I have been by the side of the divine physician's son long enough to discern poison, even if I cannot heal. Do you dare to harm me, Cheng Chumo? He scoffed. Ma Zhou's face paled as he rose to bellow. Who dares to conspire against his majesty? Investigate. If we cannot uncover the culprit, no one is permitted to leave. Cheng Chumo cast a sidelong glance at Ma Zhou. You think I could be deceived by mere memorials? I have survived to this day not through meekness, but through strength. Bring forth orders. 10 eunuchs shall perish for every 3 who conspire against me. and the military shall secure the palace. All ministers are to assemble in the Hall of Supreme Harmony. Any who dare depart, without my command shall face death. With that, he strode outside, hands clasped behind his back. Ma Zhou stared in disbelief at Cheng Chumo's retreating figure, just as a blade was pressed to his neck. The master has decreed, any who leave without permission shall die, the special forces agent declared. Do you still wish to conspire against the master? What has the master not witnessed? He has survived with antidotes in his possession. Do they think they can poison him? They are unworthy. Ma Zhou stood frozen, as did the 6 ministers. The entirety of Chang'an was seized by military control. The southern guards entered the imperial city. 10 eunuchs were executed for every 3. The palace was engulfed in a stench of blood. Cheng Chumo sat in the rear garden, with Yuan Tiangang standing behind him. Tiangang, do tell me. Who wishes to harm me? Cheng Chumo inquired. Yuan Tiangang twitched his lips. Such a title was truly overwhelming. I do not know, he replied. Cheng Chumo chuckled. You are aware that it is Ma Zhou who seeks my demise. You refrain from speaking because you do not wish for Ma Zhou to perish. Am I correct? Cheng Chumo asserted. Yuan Tiangang secretly admired Cheng Chumo's insight. Impressive. He too suspected that it was Ma Zhou who intended to kill Cheng Chumo. He could not bear the thought of Ma Zhou's death, hence his silence. As for the reasons, only Ma Zhou himself knew. I have never expected my ministers to be loyal to me. To conspire to poison me is but a dream. No one can slay me unless I choose to relinquish my life, Cheng Chumo declared. The special forces arrived to report the situation. 10 slain, 3 remaining, he commanded. The special forces complied. The palace was rife with chaos. The floor tiles were stained crimson. Cheng Chumo showed no sign of halting. He swung the blade once more, declaring, now, 10 slain, 7 remain. At the moment the great tree fell, not a single leaf was innocent. Cheng Chumo was no benevolent soul. He had long been prepared. Otherwise, the young widow would have already been brought to the palace. The absence of her presence spoke volumes. All eunuchs have been eliminated, reported the special forces. Cheng Chumo lifted his teacup and sipped. Then let us slay the palace maids. If the culprit remains elusive, we shall execute the consorts. If still no answers arise, we will cleanse the palace entirely, he stated. Your Majesty, might this be a bit excessive? Yuan Tiangang ventured. He had to speak up. Cheng Chumo seemed to have lost his sanity. Cheng Chumo turned to Yuan Tiangang and smiled. You are right, Tiangang. Killing palace maids and consorts is indeed futile. Let us target the princes instead, he proclaimed. Yuan Tiangang shuddered. More lives to be taken? Seize all princes and dukes at once. From this day forth, they shall no longer hold their titles. 10 slain, 3 remaining, Cheng Chumo ordered. Yuan Tiangang interjected. We cannot harm those princes. Doing so will truly plunge their nations into chaos. Cheng Chumo ignored him. Kill, he commanded. The special forces complied. All princes were apprehended. Before the special forces could act, Li Shaogong confessed, it was I who did it. Do not kill anymore. Cheng Chumo shook his head, a mocking smile gracing his lips. Do you think I am easily deceived? I will not only execute the princes, but I will also slay the ministers. I have long viewed them with disdain. Cheng Chumo declared. Li Shaogong glared at Cheng Chumo in anger. Are you not afraid of plunging the world into chaos? Are you not afraid of becoming a sinner? He roared. Cheng Chumo rose, hands clasped behind his back, and approached Li Shaogong. What does it matter to me? The suffering of the common people. The death of the common people. Does this turmoil hinder your indulgence? Cheng Chumo retorted. Li Shaogong stared at Cheng Chumo in terror. He is a madman. He is a madman. Proclaim my decree, Li Shaogong. For his report, shall be spared from death. All other nobles shall face 10 slain, 3 remaining, Cheng Chumo commanded. Li Shaogong spat blood and fell over. Drag him out and bury him, Cheng Chumo ordered. The special forces complied. Yuan Tiangang refrained from dissuading him. He seemed to foresee something. Cheng Chumo intended to seize this opportunity for reform. At this moment, even if someone confessed to being the culprit, it would be of no use. Cheng Chumo would not acknowledge who the true culprit was. How many do you intend to kill? Yuan Tiangang inquired. Cheng Chumo regarded Yuan Tiangang, secretly admiring him. A living deity indeed. You can predict this as well. There are too many idle mouths to feed in the Tang dynasty. Let us slay another 1,000, Cheng Chumo proclaimed. Wu Mingyang rushed over, her skirts held high. Brother-in-law, what troubles you? Why are you killing so many? She asked, her voice growing softer. Cheng Chumo did not respond. The palace's depths were treacherous. It was time to drain the waters clean. He led Yuan Tiangang toward the city tower, intending to observe their actions. Tiangang, do you believe someone unexpected will appear? Cheng Chumo mused. Yuan Tiangang smiled silently. Wu Mingyang followed closely, wryly smiling within. Cheng Chumo, indeed, would not be deterred by his daughter. Upon reaching the city tower, a group of dukes and princes were escorted to the foot of the tower. Cheng Chumo stood at the highest point, observing. Kill, commanded the special forces. Those lords who typically wielded power trembled in fear, desperately pleading for mercy. Cheng Chumo remained unmoved. The special forces raised their Tang sabers. Do not kill. Empress Changsun, clutching her daughter, approached the execution ground. The special forces halted, turning to Cheng Chumo. His expression was devoid of emotion. Wu Mingyang noticed something amiss. His hidden hand trembled within his sleeve. Kill, Cheng Chumo uttered a single word. The special forces acted immediately. Their master was solely Cheng Chumo. Empress Changsun held no sway. Heads rolled. Empress Changsun's face flushed red, while her daughter covered her eyes with tiny hands. Cheng Chimo descended the tower and entered the Hall of Governance. Empress Changsun, holding her child, followed him into the hall. There were only 3 individuals present. The sweetness of the past had vanished. Cheng Chimo stood with hands clasped behind his back, surveying the hall. Thank you for your care. Without you, I might have perished long ago, he remarked, his tone indifferent. Is the child not Cheng Chimo's? Empress Changsun implored. Can this cease? Cheng Chimo shook his head. Having seized the empire, one cannot afford to be merciful. The empire is no longer Li Tang's, and those are no longer princes. He sighed inwardly. Please do not kill. Banishment will suffice, Empress Changsun pleaded. Cheng Chimo shook his head. Shall I leave them to incite rebellion? He sat beside the bed. I entered Li Shimin's tomb. There are 2 coffins within. One belongs to him. The other is empty, presumably prepared for someone else, that person being you. Am I correct? Cheng Chimo stated. The 2 seemed to engage in a heart-to-heart conversation. Empress Changsun sat beside Cheng Chimo. The child reached out, yearning to be held by him. Cheng Chimo smiled as he embraced the child. We are not from the same world. Do you think it possible for us to have children? Cheng Chimo mused. Empress Changsun said nothing, suddenly snatching the child away. She departed the hall, cradling the child. I, Cheng Chimo, am done with you, he declared. After uttering those words, he lay feebly on the bed. What could be more tragic than this? His eyes grew increasingly red. In his heart, only a single word lingered. Suddenly, he sat upright, leaving the Hall of Governance for the Taiji Hall. The entire court was gathered in the Taiji Hall. Cheng Chimo ascended the dragon throne and settled himself. All princes and dukes are hereby dismissed. The Tang dynasty shall have no lords, he proclaimed. The ministers bowed in response. A dead ally does not hinder a living practitioner. Those lords were but parasites within the Tang dynasty, utterly dispensable. Ma Zhou, Cheng Chimo bellowed. As Ma Zhou stepped forward, he bowed deeply, rendered speechless. Cheng Chimo did not inquire, for any question would be superfluous. The loyal man whom Ma Zhou once was had long since perished alongside Li Shimin, who had once shown him great favor. I shall not pursue the matter of your poisoning, nor will I concern myself with your loyalties. From this day forth, you are charged with executing the policies I set forth. Should you exhibit even the slightest negligence, I shall ensure you are remembered as a traitor for eternity. Cheng Chimo declared. The ministers turned their gazes upon Ma Zhou, realizing that this rogue had instigated turmoil. What had once been a tranquil court was now disrupted by his petitions, intended to poison Cheng Chimo when he was weary. Was Cheng Chimo so easily slain? How would this end? Cheng Chimo had already executed numerous princes. Would he next turn his wrath upon the ministers? Cheng Chimo addressed them. I have perused countless petitions. If your dedication does not match my own, then your existence is unnecessary. With that, he departed to the back garden, where Wu Meinyang sat in silent tears. Who could have anticipated that Ma Zhou was the mastermind? This reputedly loyal minister had betrayed them. As Cheng Chimo approached, she turned her head away. Wu Meinyang had changed, becoming sensitive and sentimental. Cheng Chimo settled beside her, asserting, this matter does not concern you. Wiping her tears, she glared at him. What does this have to do with Empress Changsun? She retorted. Cheng Chimo could not divulge the truth. To reveal that Empress Changsun's child was not his own would be too scandalous. Attend to your duties. Do you not relish managing state affairs? Henceforth, you shall oversee governance. If you possess the capability, I shall consider making you empress, he proclaimed. Li Shimin had relished manipulating others. Now, let us see who truly plays the game. Cheng Chimo's kin would suffer as he did. This matter truly has no bearing on Empress Changsun, Wu Meinyang insisted. Having once served under Li Shimin, she was privy to many secrets and understood his tactics. Seeing Cheng Chimo's continued disbelief, she grew anxious. Why must you be so obstinate? She implored. Bring me the imperial records, she commanded a maid. The maid promptly retrieved the records, which Wu Meinyang began to peruse. Cheng Chimo leaned in, observing. After the 9th year of the Jingguan era, Li Shimin had not laid a finger on Empress Changsun again, even after her return. This was a consequence of Empress Changsun's own actions, when she had been brought back by Li Ji. She had instructed Wu Shun not to inform Cheng Chimo of her pregnancy. How could Cheng Chimo not speculate? Any man would. Cheng Chimo had learned of Empress Changsun's pregnancy several months later. Rising abruptly, he bellowed, bring me the Guanyin maid. At that moment, the Guanyin maid had already departed Chang'an. Unaccompanied. On the official road, Empress Changsun wept openly. What am I to do? She sobbed to herself, feeling utterly helpless. She had once contemplated retreating into seclusion. Yet her daughter made her hesitate, fearing the embarrassment it would bring Li Lizzie. Though Li Lizzie feigned indifference, Empress Changsun understood her true feelings. Stop right there. Li Xiaoning called out loudly, riding towards them. Empress Changsun gazed at her in shock as Li Xiaoning dismounted. Her tears flowed even more freely. Li Xiaoning paid her no mind, preoccupied with the child she cradled. You resemble Chimo, she remarked. Empress Changsun, seeing no one to comfort her, ceased her weeping, glaring at Li Xiaoning, attempting to shame her with her eyes. But Li Xiaoning remained unperturbed. Who among couples does not quarrel? You, a grown woman, should not stoop to Cheng Chimo's level. Come, let us return. It has been years since he has lavished me with affection, while you bask in luxury and still weep. Li Xiaoning chided. Empress Changsun could no longer contain herself. Li Xiaoning was truly unreliable. She seized Li Xiaoning's face, but Li Xiaoning was not one to be easily subdued. With a single hand, She overpowered Empress Changsun and tripped her, smirking coldly. You dare to contend with me? I shall spare you this time, but should it happen again, I will not be so lenient. Empress Changsun felt wronged. This is too much. I yield, she exclaimed, though she still harbored resentment towards Li Xiaoning. The latter then helped her to her feet, inquiring why she sought to leave. Empress Changsun recounted her plight in full. Li Xiaoning listened intently, a grin spreading across her face. How amusing. You entered the palace pregnant and expected Cheng Chimo not to suspect? Do you take him for a fool? You wish him to be magnanimous, but life is fleeting. Do not dwell on it too much, she teased. Empress Changsun stood frozen, struck by the realization that it was indeed peculiar to arrive at the palace already with child. Cheng Chimo was off on a campaign, and upon his return, Li Lizzie was gravely ill. They had scarcely shared any intimacy. It was those few encounters that had led to her pregnancy. Overwhelmed by guilt, Empress Changsun reflected on how women keep track of their cycle, while men often overlook such details. What are you laughing at? The royal family is on the verge of being eradicated by Cheng Chimo, she retorted. Li Xiaoning dismissed her concerns. The royal family, aside from the princes, held no relevance to her. Those useless people dying is for the best. They waste resources. Now, I must return to Chang'an, she stated. Empress Changsun's expression grew troubled. Just moments ago, she had been terrified, fearing she would encounter a villain. The situation felt increasingly unjust, even if she had erred. Cheng Chimo should not have pursued her so relentlessly. I have nowhere to go, she wept. Chapter 299. The return of Li Jingate. She truly had no refuge. The Changsun family had long since severed ties with her. Her uncle, Gao Shilian, had passed away, leaving her without a place to turn. Would you return me to Gansu? Empress Changsun pleaded, her voice barely above a whisper, for Gansu was also Cheng Chimo's stronghold. Li Xiaoning ceased her teasing. Empress Changsun was genuinely lost, and she had nowhere to go. She felt as though she were condemned to death. Where could she possibly seek refuge? As the two conversed, a group of figures clad in black surrounded them, led by Li Daozong. Li Xiaoning's expression turned grave. Li Jingate, she murmured. Empress Changsun's heart raced. Had this organization truly awakened? She had thought they would be buried alongside Li Shimin, yet here they were, emerging from the shadows. The Li Jingate was sworn to protect the royal family, acting solely on Li Shimin's command. Now, with the royal family in peril, they had mobilized without orders, led by none other than Li Daozong. In the realm of Li Jingmen, there exists a formidable force of 3,000 individuals, dispersed throughout Chang'an, living among the common folk in a manner indistinguishable from them. They differ significantly from the nefarious elements of society, if the latter are akin to a glaring blade. Li Jingmen operates as a concealed arrow. The Empress Changsun intervened to prevent Cheng Chimo from slaughtering the royal family for this very reason. She was acutely aware of Li Jingmen's terrifying existence. Upon reclaiming their identities, their foremost act is to eradicate all kin, severing any potential vulnerabilities. These individuals are reminiscent of elite soldiers, as they are, in essence, death row inmates. Once, Emperor Li Shimin granted a general amnesty, releasing numerous death row prisoners to return to society. Upon their return, Li Shimin fully pardoned them, instructing Li Daozong to covertly train these men. Their masters were numerous, but ultimately, they all met their demise at the hands of their students. Under such brutal training, they had long since shed their humanity. Marriage and parenthood became mere facades devoid of genuine emotion. This is the source of Li Daozong's confidence, the reason for his lack of fear towards Cheng Chimo. Oh, how splendid it is to capture Cheng Chimo's child, a fitting revenge for our fallen kin, Li Daozong exclaimed with a hearty laugh. Stepping forward, Empress Changsun positioned herself protectively in front of Li Xiaoning. Xiaoning, take the child and flee, she commanded. Her frail figure appeared unusually imposing at that moment. Li Daozong's eyes glimmered with avarice. His desire for Empress Changsun had been brewing for quite some time. While Li Shimin was alive, he dared not act. But now he felt invincible, for no one could penetrate Li Jingmen to harm him. He was the predator, not the prey. Li Xiaoning surveyed the once vibrant throng of over 3,000. Their spirit was diminished, and she realized they were not a force she could contend with. How dare anyone threaten my sister-in-law? Shouted Chibu Bao, descending from the mountain with 1,000 followers. Coincidentally, this mountain served as Li Tai's hidden stronghold. Upon seeing Chibu Bao, Li Daozong's eyes widened in terror. He was momentarily distracted by the resemblance to Cheng Chimo. Flee quickly, he urged. The Li Jingmen operatives, devoid of further dialogue, retreated in an orderly fashion. Take them with us, he added, not forgetting about Empress Changsun. Excitement surged within him at the thought of having her at his mercy, as she had never regarded him with respect. He envisioned a future where she must face him. Moreover, the child presented a potential leverage against Cheng Chimo. Li Xiaoning entrusted the child to Empress Changsun and unsheathed her sword. Guanyin, stay behind me. If I perish, ensure Cheng Chimo knows I died for his child. I wish to be buried in the Cheng ancestral tomb, she declared, even in death seeking a semblance of belonging. Empress Changsun nodded solemnly, gazing at the child. Mother will not allow you to fall into the hands of others. We shall not let villains use you to torment your father, she vowed. 2 pills appeared in her hand, marking her final course of action. As the Li Jingmen charged toward Li Xiaoning, she sustained grievous injuries. Such was the combat prowess of Li Jingmen. Empress Changsun consumed one of the pills and offered the other to her children. She hesitated, refraining from tears. For she would only weep for Cheng Chimo's sake. Li Daozong was unworthy of her sorrow. In the distance, Chi Bu Bao's eyes blazed with fury. He hefted a cannon and aimed it at Li Daozong, unleashing a devastating shot. Li Daozong had never witnessed such ferocity, and terror seized him. "Protect me," he shouted. The Li Jingmen began to regroup, bracing themselves against the cannon fire, which claimed the lives of at least 100 of their number. Several Li Jingmen dashed towards Empress Changsun, launching an attack aimed at her back. The pill that she had just consumed was expelled, and it fell from her grasp. Chi Bu Bao finally surged forward, using the cannon to crush several Li Jingmen.